Okay, well, hold on. I need a second to figure out, make sure everything's working. Check my settings, make sure my mic is up. Just on my Yeti microphone. If my okay, well, Shima's going. It's not showing up on my phone, but at least I know I can hear everything. So I keep saying I'm gonna go over the like art and stuff of Edge of Eternities. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I'm not sure I have a ton to say about each art piece, just because of I'm not gonna pretend like I'm an expert on like art per se, even though I'm an artist, and I don't know how many things I'm gonna say that would sound repetitive. So I'm gonna look at the art and stuff, but I'm probably also gonna focus a bit more on like the flavor of the card and maybe a little bit of lore explanation about what's happening on the card or why it makes sense with the character. I think I left my cup downstairs. I'll grab it if I have to. Um, Sorry, YouTube. I opened YouTube on my phone so I can see the chat. Yeah, I'll read all the flavor text. But first we're just gonna look at. So I'm not gonna look at all the So normally I'm not planning to go over every single instance of a Magic the Gathering crossover set, just because I don't always have the necessary expertise or like or knowledge about the series they're crossover that are doing crossovers with to be able to explain to you why they're making the choices that they are. But with Avatar, I'm quite familiar with Avatar. It's been a while since I read up on the lore per se, but I've watched the series like I think at least 3 times, the OG series, and like Korra like twice. So I could at least have a better understanding of why they're making the decisions they're making. And I'm not gonna go over all the over all the Avatar cards we're getting. I'm just gonna go over the cards we get in this video, and then I'll go back to Edge of Eternities. Um, so we're just gonna do this. Also, I've already seen this trailer, so I'm gonna pause it whenever. Awesome. Oh, but all the arts have different flavor text. Yeah, so I'm still thinking about that. I think I'm gonna start. I have to think about do I want to do every single art, or just like or just like go through, because it's probably gonna take a while. I don't think it's feasible to do it all in like one stream, like every single version of the art. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably just go like kind of in Wooberg order, like colorless lands, and then after that I'll start doing that with the bonus arts and stuffs. Um, but first we're gonna start looking at what they have for some of the stuff they have for the Avatar set, just because the reason I didn't talk about the Final Fantasy sets is because I just don't know anything about Final Fantasy. I've never played Final Fantasy, not even Final Fantasy like 7 or like 14, the online one everyone keeps talking about. So I couldn't tell you anything about like why they chose. I could tell you that I guess I can know a little bit about Cloud, so I guess making him like care about equipment is kind of funny. He's got a big sword. Um, so if I don't get through all the Edge of Eternity's cards today, which I probably won't realistically, because my streams are very long, they're like 1 to 2 hours at most. I will probably just continue going through over them over the course of this weekend. I meant to start doing this on Friday, but I thought yesterday was Thursday, and then so by the time I realized it was kind of too late. But we'll just go over to Monday if we have to. So obviously we have the Magic the Gathering symbol they use for Magic the Gathering, and then obviously this is mirroring the original opening of Avatar. Where they in Avatar they list out all the elements. Hold on. I'm not really sure if I need to show this to anyone, but because I feel like everyone knows, at least gets has an idea what the Avatar opening is. Why does this look so weird? When did this come out? 5 years ago? Okay. So that's what they are referencing.
Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
So the reason I show this whole thing is because I think we see a couple references in the set already. I'm not sure if we see like every single card reference, but there is like a set that there's like flavor text that goes like then the Fire Nation attack, which like all that stuff in this opening is referencing the original Avatar opening. And of course, this resembles like when Aang's in the Avatar state, like a ball of air around him, and fire and water, like a ring of earth.
Discover the cards of Magic the Gathering.
So I don't know if this person's supposed to like sound like kind of like Katara. It doesn't sound exactly like Katara, so I can't really tell. This could just be like invoking the like how some of the voice acting is, but and there you have the symbols for each of the nations. The water tribe, which is like a wave inside. It's the idea is the water bending like gains power from the moon. So this circle obviously symbolizes like the moon, and you have a wave inside of it. And these are like badger moles because badger moles were the original earthbenders. Fire Nation is just fire. And then airbender looks like worlds of air. So here we have Aang's. Oh, so part of the reason I'm pausing is I've already seen it. So if you haven't already seen this trailer, probably go watch it when you have the time. But here we have Aang's Iceberg, 2 generic, 1 white, enchantment, flash. When this enchantment enters, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent until the enchantment leaves the battlefield. Waterbend, 3. Sacrifice this enchantment if you do scry 2. While paying a waterbend cost, you can tap your artifacts and creatures to help. Each one pays for 1. So I'm still not exactly clear about what the bending. Okay, some of the bending seem like they're very specific about what they want you to do, and some of them seem more broad. But I'll probably, I'm sure they probably explain it somewhere in some article that we'll get to eventually. So Aang's Iceberg. I can't really think of a particular reason why it'd be white, other than the fact that I guess maybe Aang's a bit of a white line character, and so you could see maybe him using it. I think the fact it's an enchantment instead of an artifact is kind of a reference to the fact that we later learned that like the iceberg was created because Aang, when he crashed into the ocean basically during a storm, went into the Avatar state and then basically like bent this iceberg around himself. Well, it's hard to say if he did it because in the Avatar state, like early in the season, like obviously earlier in the seasons, he can't really control the Avatar state. So he entered the Avatar state, and then in the state, if you want to say it was the other avatars or in general, basically his life was he basically like autopilot saved his own life by like creating this ice around him to freeze himself from the ice for 100 years so he wouldn't drown there. Waterbend 3, sacrifice enchantment if you do, scry 2. I think it's cute that you can sacrifice the enchantment. So I think this is a reference to, well, first of all, it's made of ice, so you could bend it, even though I don't remember Katara bending the iceberg itself. I think she just smacks it with Sokka's mace. So I wonder of the story of it. Okay, so that comes from an episode. There's an episode of Avatar where it's like a bunch of small shorts, and there's an episode where Sokka. You could probably watch. We might have time to watch it right now because it's not very long. There's an episode where Sokka basically accidentally wanders into like a women's like poetry place, and he accidentally makes a haiku, and then he starts getting kind of like a little bit like cocky and starts like basically a poetry slam on the spot. So the counter spell represents him basically countering the lady by making a poetry on the spot. We might actually have time to watch it. It's not a super long thing. Hold on, let me just see if it's on YouTube. Yeah, it's only like 2 minutes. We could watch it. Give me a second though. We'll get if we see Sokka's haiku here, I'll pull it up. But so the fact that you can waterbend the ice and sacrifice, and the scry 2 is obviously you're looking to see what's in the ice. Like when Katara first comes across the ice, she's very curious about. She's like, "There's a person in this ice." So by scrying, you're opening up the iceberg and seeing what's inside. And obviously, since it exiles something when it enters the battlefield, you're letting whatever it is out. And I assume the flash is also like a reference to like how quickly Aang did it. Like he crashed into the ocean and then enters the Avatar state and freezes the water around him. So, while paying a waterbend cost, you can also. It's very interesting how this spell is framed because this is obviously a white banishing spell, right? You exile. You usually want to exile something an opponent has to stop it from running amok. But here you could. There are situations where there are a lot of situations where you actually would want to exile your own thing because you can sack this by paying its waterbending cost, and then let it out. So in the same way Aang protected himself with the iceberg, you could purposely freeze something and then keep it safe for a little bit, and then sacrifice and let it out. While paying a waterbend cost, you can tap your artifacts and creatures to help. So this kind of seems like Convoke, except for maybe abilities. I think bending is kind of hard just to represent flavor wise and certain like earthbending is easy. It's like care about lands. Okay. Firebending is very offensive, like art. So each of the bending is also described as like certain ways. So firebending is very offensive. So like okay, it makes sense that it probably cares about attacking or dealing damage because fire often represents damage. Airbending is very like evasive and like jumping around and stuff. And then you have waterbending, which is kind of hard to represent. Like, do you care about islands or like how do you really represent like caring about water per se in Magic the Gathering? I guess tapping and untapping. I think this in particular probably represents just like so. Usually, if you bend together in unison with other people, it makes it basically bend. You can do more impressive feats. It's just kind of like working together. Like obviously, like 3 people are gonna be stronger than 1 person. So if you want to move something, you want as many people as possible to help move it. So if you have a bunch of people, it's kind of hot in my room. If you have a bunch of people, bending stuff, it makes it easier to bend, and you can do more impressive bending feats. You can bend bigger stuff if you're working in concert, obviously. As far as the art goes, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's very interesting. There's like a sunrise behind you, but obviously, like this is the main focus. It's like glowing blue, and you can see Appa and Aang within it. I love like the swirling motion and stuff. Um, so I mean, even here, the light's creating kind of like a path almost up to it, where like the light's hitting the water in such a way that it's almost like making a path, like it's guiding your eye towards here. Um, so.
Crack Aang's iceberg. It's your choice to follow.
Aang's journey. So I think it's Chris Colorless. So they have a lesson and learn mechanic in this set, which actually kind of makes a lot of sense because the whole point is that the reason Aang's traveling the world so he can learn and master each of the elements. So I guess if there was a crossover set where you want a lesson to learn, this would be the set. The idea that you're traveling and as you travel, you can learn like new bending techniques or new techniques, learn more about the world. So the mechanics we have are waterbend, earthbend, firebend, airbend, and then learn and lesson. I think it's just colorless because it represents the idea. Because sometimes they use like colorless to like, represent sort of like you can't really assign to one color, but like can you really assign this to Wooburg either? So I guess the idea is that like this could be like a journey to like any place. Kicker. So Aang's journey, generic, 2 generic, sorcery lesson, kicker 2. You may pay an additional 2 as you cast a spell. Interesting. Search your library for a basic land card. If the spell was kicked, instead, search for your library for a basic land card and a shrine card. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, then shuffle. You gain 2 life. So obviously, do they not have? But they have lesson cards. It's wait a minute. Surely, hold on. Search for a lesson. I'll double check later, but yeah, I guess I don't see any learn. I see lesson cards. You have to assume they're putting in learn, right? Though, because like, what's the point? Otherwise, what's the point of having a lesson card? No. Maybe cast lesson. Well, it cares about casting lessons. I guess you're just gonna have to like Strixhaven maybe. Huh. No, that's weird. No, that's weird. Are you supposed to raw dog it and just put the lesson in your deck? That's kind of like I think the whole point of a lesson is that usually they're like less efficient, but that comes with the trade-off is you can include them in your sideboard, so you can be like more consistent with them. Anyway, I think 2 generic is just the idea that basically like you can travel to various lands. It's about Aang like learning about the like different color identities and different bending styles, because each bending style also has like a philosophy that you could easily ascribe to like one of the color identities. Like fire is like very like all the bending types are connected to your emotion. Like sometimes when you see characters get emotional, they'll bend a bit, but fire especially so. So you can definitely see fire as like being connected to red, and then like water being the element of change, like maybe blue or something, and then like air is maybe white or blue. Like this, it's like super. It's like kind of like a lot of the air nomads are like super religious, more spiritual. I wouldn't say maybe religious, but like more spiritual than like only for flavor. That's super weird. I mean, I guess obviously there's also shrines here, which I think is represent like the various. There's like different like sprites of, like spiritual power in Avatar, especially like shrines, like different like avatars. So I can totally see that categorizing those as shrines. And here we just have Appa, and I mean it's pretty simple art. Like Appa and the gang are the main focus here, and then the land's almost like ambiguous here. Like yeah, you see a couple trees, but it's very like kind of like muddied in a way that's kind of hard to make it out. Like it's clearly mountainous of some sort, but almost like kind of leaves up like these up. It's almost like a blank slate, I guess you could view it as, and then Aang's pointing to something. Where's that land you're looking for? So the idea is that basically you're traveling to a new land. And in case you don't know, Magic the Gathering, the idea behind the lands is that actually makes a lot of sense. It allows them to make it more efficient for constructed when Learn comes back in Strixhaven without them being too strong for limited. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And I guess at the end of the day, you can just run. I mean, if you're, I don't think most crossovers are standard legal. Maybe I might be wrong. I don't think every crossover is standard legal. But I guess if you're running in historic, you just pull some Strixhaven cards. But obviously these represent. So Magic the Gathering, how it works, basically the idea is that you're a planeswalker and you're drawing your power from the lands you've been to. So every time you play a land or search for a land, it's you discovering a land to draw power from. So the idea here is kind of like similar in the sense that whenever you find a land, you can use it to help fuel your spells and stuff, and you can also look for shrines. Also gives you life, which I guess when they're, I guess it's kind of cute because when they're on sometimes like they ride an Appa and stuff, and you can see it as like downtime. So you gain 2 life is kind of cute because like you're resting on Appa. This is just Ba Sing Se. So Ba Sing Se is a city in the Earth Kingdom. I think it's the biggest city, clearly based on the big Great Wall of China, except Ba Sing Se has multiple walls, I believe. And obviously the richer you are, more affluent you are, like politically or just like with monetary, the more inside the city you are, like the more of the outer city, like more like the lower income places. So is it? Oh, I thought it wasn't. That makes sense. I thought it was just historic and stuff. Because I have not played Tater in a while. I kind of just play historic mostly on MTGA. And then my physical decks are just Commander and Pioneer. So Ba Sing Se is a bunch of farmland, and I guess you could see it as a plants. Like sure enough. Obviously one thing they do a lot with white is like they emphasize like a lot of gold and white. Like even a lot of the planes they draw, like usually when they pick planes, they usually have like golden grass and like wheat and stuff. Which white in general is just sometimes like, it's probably not proving my point. White in general is just like often symbolizes by like the colors like white and gold. Obviously because white, and then yellow because like it's questions like the sun and other stuff. I don't know why I grabbed it, like that proves my point. Like here, like golden grass. And so it often picks like a sunset or the sunrise or something. Obviously it shows Appa flying through. So I think I talked about this card earlier, but I'm just gonna read it as I see it. Avatar Aang, red, green, white, blue. So each of these represent like an element. I assume white. The idea is red is fire, green is earth, and white is air, and then blue is water. And the idea that he's mastered 4 of the elements. The only problem with the 4 element system is that there's not really anything for black, I suppose. Although we do see Aang gain black when he enters the Avatar state, but I think like some of the bending clear has like clear philosophies that can map onto like the color identities, but some of them are just like for example like green, I guess could be earth. It's kind of hard for like sure, but also like the idea is I think like for example like I pointed out that all the colors of Magic Gathering have like elemental like associations, just like symbolically. Like red usually associated with fire because it's the idea of like strong emotion and passion and heat, and like if you say my blood's boiling, means you're getting like really angry, really emotional. And then green, both red and green are also have association with the earth, but only red has association with fire. Green has association with the earth. The idea behind both red and green have association with the earth is like the idea of like earth in like classical like Greek thought and stuff is like a more bodily emotion. Like water and air represent like the mind and spirit and stuff, like higher emotions, and like not higher emotions, like higher like forms of being. And then green and red represents kind of like, green and red being connected to earth, it represents more of like a bodily, like physical, like quote unquote lower element. Like the idea of like fire being emotion, then earth being like the body, like the physical, or like caring more about like the like what's present. And I could see like maybe a bit arguing like a bit of green for earth, maybe in like philosophy in terms of like stubbornness. Like green is all about accepting the world for as it is, and this idea of like being down to earth and physical. And then white, like I said, I think I can see the airbenders being white aligned. So white just has a lot of flyers. I think white has more connection to like light and stuff, as opposed to like, because I think while blue, green, and red have very strong connections to like the four like classical elements. White and black tend to be like less so. Not that they never represent it, but like generally like white is like light, and then black is represented by darkness and shadow and stuff. But white does have a lot of flyers, so if you could probably attribute it to like air and wind elements sometimes, and it does make sense for the air nomads. Like I said, they're very spiritual, and the idea of like there being like an objective good and evil, and then high spirituality and stuff, and that like you have a soul that can like be corrupted by doing bad things, etc., etc. And then blue is just like water, and water is referred to as an element of change, and that could make sense for blue because the not that green is like inherently always anti-change. Green is like change just occurs naturally, and you shouldn't try to force things to change. You should let change occur naturally. But hold on, someone's talking on Twitch. Yeah, there's advertising stuff. So anyway, so this idea of like, so blue does have a strong connection to change, where red change is those more spontaneous and like sudden. Generally, in Magic the Gathering, it's like oh, transmogrify. I think is suddenly something else. Blue can also change creatures into other things, but usually it's just like slower and like a bit less random. So the idea of like picking like the element that's described as the element of change, according to Iroh, with like blue does make a lot of sense. As well as like the elemental like how Magic assigns elements to the colors, like the idea of like blue and like blue in its connection to air, and water is also like this idea of like malleability. Like earth is really physical and hard to change, but like the idea that water and air can like are very malleable substances that can be changed, and that kind of fits with the idea of like blue's idea of like everybody's like a blank slate. You can become what you want to be as long as you have the knowledge and means to do so. Like you aren't like necessarily destined for a specific purpose per se, or if you are, you can change it. And then we have legendary creature, human avatar, ally. So Aang is the avatar in the sense. I think it does make sense. So obviously he's the avatar, and even the term avatar is based on like the I want to say it's like Hindu of origin. Um, or Sanskrit avatar. It's Hindu, yeah. So it's a manifestation of a Hindu deity in physical form. Obviously, Avatar Aang and Avatar Roku and all those people, those are not they're not like manifestations of gods, but they are like manifestations. They're like reincarnations of each other. So they are Avatar in the sense that they are like the same person like reincarnating over and over, even though they have like I mean person like the sense like it's hard to explain. Like, I mean, yes, they are person like they probably like share a soul or whatever. Even though we do see Roku in the spirit world, like they're clearly there somewhere, and like the avatar's consciousness, like you can call upon them to like talk with your past lives. But they're not like literally the same character. I guess I would say they're the same person, but they're not like the same character. Like they do not have all the same like likes and dislikes and personality. Like some are obviously more peaceful, and some are like more like prone to violence. Um, but either way, Avatar does make sense as just categorizing Aang in general. Like I know it's like you could say, oh, just a pun, but I think it does actually make like logical sense to describe Aang as he is as a being, as an avatar of like of various reincarnated souls, and then also ally. I think it's nice. It makes sense they bring allies back in the set because part of like the gang's whole thing is like basically like a bunch of people from different like from different from different places, the Earth Kingdom, Water Tribe, Fire Nation, etc., all coming together, banding together and to work together. So it doesn't make sense to have like allies of the sex. The whole point is the idea is like Aang wants to unite the world once again to bring people together. That's like his goal as the Avatar. So it makes sense that this would be the set with Avatar. We have flying firebending too. They don't explain what firebending does here. I think it cares about attacking or something. Um, Firebending X. When this creature attacks, add. It seems like firebending is whenever this creature attacks, add red, which is interesting. But I'll talk about that in a second. Um, anyway. So firebending adding mana though. Firebending caring about attacking makes a lot of sense because it's the idea of firebending is a very offensive fighting style just generally. It's usually about attacking and going on the offense, and also like in Magic the Gathering, hold on, someone's calling me. Hello. I'm in the middle of a stream. I'll do it when I get the opening. Okay. Um. So Firebending is a very offensive element, so it's going to care about attacking. And also, it seems like it's making red mana, which is not what I have assumed it would have done. Because like usually you have fire and magic like often, but not always. Like often, it's like the idea of like fire does damage, so like it pings for damage. But it could have been for balance reasons. But I mean, I guess it also makes sense that it produces red mana, like the idea that's producing energy, for you to use. Especially since we know that like they like part of the reason the firebending have such like a technological supremacy within the world of Avatar, like they figure out how to make like a lot of like refined metals like more often. They can they have like their tanks and stuff. It makes sense because they can use their fire to fuel the like machines and stuff, and it gives them like a bit of a technological edge. Um, Whenever you waterbend, earthbend, firebend, or airbend, draw a card. Then if you've done all four this turn, transform Avatar Aang. So obviously if you whenever you learn like practice an element or learn an element, you draw a card, and then if you've done all four, Aang enters the Avatar state because he's mastered every element. When the world needed him most, the Avatar returned. So this is a bit of a play on like the opening that we just saw. When the world needed him most, he vanished. When the world needed him most, he's back. So Aang, master of elements. I think the only reason he's colorless, well, okay. So colors can represent a couple different things. Sometimes it represents a color, something that wouldn't really have like a color alignment because it doesn't really have a philosophy to speak of, like an artifact, like if it's just like an object or something. But sometimes it represents a sort of enlightenment. Like you see Ugin, for example. It's like this idea of like being enlightened and like being beyond like the stereotypical like color philosophies. And sometimes it represents like some sort of thing that's just like beyond our understanding. Like the Eldrazi, it's like the idea of just like they're so far beyond our understanding they wouldn't even like really apply to our understanding of the Fire Nation attack. Yeah, I'm just gonna. You're never gonna hear me shut up if I get one of my hands on one of those cards. Especially with Sozin, because then you can go the Fire Nation attacked. So colorless represents usually like one of three things. It's like in some sort of enlightenment, doesn't really have a color philosophy to speak of, or it's like just beyond our understanding to assign a color. Here, I think it's just like the idea of like enlightenment, like the idea of having the knowledge and like influence of like every single avatar at once coming like within Aang. It could also just be sometimes I think they do it because they have like, is there a way to like, do they have like a lot of Woodberg transforming cards? Like usually just like, I'm not really sure they have like a way to represent more than like two colors on like the back of a transforming card, right? I think. So it could also be like a mechanical thing. It could be like we can't. Maybe hold on, there might be one. I might just be misremembering. This is not what I was looking for. Transform. Whoops. Oh, this one's like Wooberg. But at the same time, it's like it doesn't have like any. Okay, see, look, because they like put it like it made manifest is all colors. Like it's not. It's not. Usually, what happens like when if you see a C transforming card is like if it's a specific color, it has like a little like pip, like not like a mana pip, but has like a little like marker with like that's one of the colors. But like here they just have to say it is all colors, and I assume that you don't always have the space to put that. So I assume they were just like we don't have the space to put that, so we're just gonna make it colorless. But it could also be a very good flavor reason as to why they do it because like I said, it could represent the idea of like enlightenment and being like beyond just like the more like generic or common like color philosophies. Because hold on, as an example of like a card that is because like here look there's a little blue like thing here, so you know it's a blue card, red, etc. Why is put art transformation? And why is that a category? I'm an Innistrad, but so like here, red, green. I don't think I've seen anything that goes like to like 3 colors or anything. It's only gone like 2 as far as transforming cards go. With the exception obviously being that like Kami card, like but it says straight up it's every color. So legendary creature avatar ally. This interesting that he loses his humanity here. He's no longer human, which I suppose makes sense because one of the conflicts with Avatar Aang during the course of Avatars, like he was trying to learn how to match the Avatar state, and then the guy was like basically went to like some guru, and he basically like, okay, so if you want to be able to control the Avatar state, you basically have to give up your humanity. and part of Aang's like journey is like learning to kind of like keep his humanity while also being being able to go into the Avatar state. So it's interesting. It's an interesting representation of that. Like he loses like a sense of self or like his humanity. Like he's more of like almost like a force of nature or a spirit esque thing here, even though like he clearly has a human body. Flying spells you spells you cast cost white, blue, black, red, green less to cast. Wait, you can reduce generic cost. That's kind of crazy. I haven't seen a lot of cards that usually if it says it reduces generic cost, it's like a generic pip, but like it says that it applies also to generic and both like colored. So if you have a card that costs like 5 generic, this would still work to reduce its cost, I assume. I think, if I'm reading the rules correctly. At the beginning of each upkeep, you may transform Aang Master of Elements. If you do, gain 4 life, draw 4 cards, put 4 +1/+1 counters on him, and he deals 40 damage to each opponent. So obviously these each represent an element. I assume gain 4 life is waterbending, because waterbending can be used to heal, even though I don't think Aang himself heals. Actually, no, I think waterbending might probably card draw. I guess maybe air is healing then, and then +1/+1 is like the earthbending, and deals 4 damage to each opponent. These may not map like 1-to-1 on each element, but I think the idea is it gives you 4 buffs because each one corresponds to an element. And because so earth is like gives you extra toughness, and then 4 damage is like the firebending. It's kind of hard for me to say which one here would be airbending, which one's waterbending. I'm tempted to say the life would be waterbending logically because waterbending can heal, even though Aang can't use it for that. But it could also just represent recovery, knowledge, like power, being able to deal shut damage or something. Again, not pretty simple. Just Aang the Avatar state got the orb of air, starting with like earth, water, and fire around it. And of course, the spells casting less represents like Aang in the state having such a mastery with elements that like he can perform moves for like much easier with like less of a cost. And it's pretty interesting. I can transform back and forth. It makes sense because like Aang does transform back and forth between the states, so it's pretty interesting that he can like transform back. 4/4/6/6. Kind of funny as a 4/4, like the idea of like 4 elements, and then comes a 6/6. But
Get a glimpse of Aang's full potential with show creator Brian
I think this is the same card, just he's in the Avatar state.
foil avatar Aang card.
And I mean, put sparkles on it. Very interesting about. It's very interesting because usually I guess the idea is like when some card transforms, like them the most powerful, but like the fact that it flips between both is kind of interesting, and the implication that like, Aang isn't necessarily like he might be physically powerful in the Avatar state, but it's not necessarily like he's like this is like peak. It's not like this is peak Aang. It's like it's something they can flip between.
But while Aang's bending skills are great, you need the whole
Okay, so here we have the gang. Katara, Water Type's Hope. 2 generic, 1 white, 2 blue. So I actually was thinking about this for a bit because at first, so there is a Katara card that's mono blue, and at first it's like I don't know. Katara reads as more like center white to me, but the more I think about it, the more I can see kind of a blue reading of her in the sense that yeah, she does have like a strong like moral center and the idea of like good and evil, which would be very in line with like a white character, and then putting the needs of others first, especially even like above herself. But like part of her arc in one of the earlier episodes is this idea that basically she goes to Northern Water Tribe, and they're basically like. If you're a woman, we don't teach you how to fight with waterbending. We teach you how to heal. That's a woman's place, which you could argue is like a very like almost like greenish white kind of area of the color pie, where it's like you're born for a specific purpose. This is what you're gonna do. You should not fight that purpose. But Katara is like, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I can't fight, and her whole like arc is basically fighting against that notion, which I feel like is a very blue. It is indeed a very blue like conflict. Is like the idea that you can be what you want to be. You're not like predestined to a fate. Like just because you're a woman doesn't mean like you're predestined to that fate, etc. Human warrior ally, it kind of explains itself. She fights. She's a human. She's an ally with Aang. Vigilance. When Katara enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So it's kind of cute that she can she summons, I guess, like a member of the team, or can rally people to her cause. Waterbend X. You could also maybe see this as like a representation. Like there's one episode where she's like, she gets brought to like this like prison camp by pretending to be an earthbender to go save someone, and then while she's there, because they're like on a completely metal structure, and at the time earthbenders had no way to bend metal, and she basically encourages like a rally there to like overthrow the firebenders. So it's pretty interesting that she can basically like rally people to her cause. Waterbend X. Creatures you control have base power toughness XX until the end of turn. X can't be 0. Activate only during your turn. While paying a waterbending cost, you can tap your artifacts and creatures to help. Each one pays for one generic. I feel like there maybe could have been more flavor about with the waterbending thing, but at the same time, it's like, what else would you really do? Because like I said, I think water is kind of like a hard. Like I don't really know how you represent waterbending in Magic the Gathering, so I can't really blame them for just going with like a sort of convoke for abilities. Um, Base power and toughness. I mean, I think it's just like the idea that she's helping people, and like maybe even bringing like some sort of equality, but I'm not 100% sure what that could represent per se. As far as waterbending, like I don't know. I guess like she can heal people, she can freeze people, she can bloodbend people. I don't really know how those would really represent this per se, other than the fact that it's like more symbolic of her wanting to help people or bringing equality of some sort. Oh yeah, so you're gonna need this card if you want to see then the Fire Nation attack. You gotta have your Fire Lord cards. So either Fire Lord Sozin or Fire Lord Zuko. Red, white, black. It's a very interesting color identity he chose for Zuko here to show him after his redemption. Like white makes sense to me at this point because the idea that like he has very strong morals. He has very strong morals in the idea of like putting others to the greater good of the world, like putting the others first now. He's less selfish, etc. Red also makes sense because he's still very emotional. I think like even when Zuko's redeemed, he's still kind of like an emotional character and that like follows like his heart in a way. And black is kind of interesting here because yes, I would categorize probably like pre-redemption Zuko as black aligned with the idea of like wanting power. He does also want like his father to like him again, which is like fair. But but there's this very idea that he wants to prove how powerful he is. He wants to get stronger. He wants to prove that he's like more he's as good as Azula, etc. So it's interesting that they include it here. I guess the idea here is that like Zuko like learning to be at peace with himself in some way, which is kind of like an important part of his arc too. So maybe that's what that also represents, or the idea of like doing what's necessary for like the greater good. Maybe even like because like Zuko is willing to help Katara potentially kill a guy, and then to be fair, I think people also like kind of do Aang dirty in that scene. So during that scene where like Aang is talking about like Katara, you shouldn't kill this guy. People treat it like they treat it like as like a worse conflict than it actually is. Aang lets her use Appa. It's not Aang basically bangs on her not gonna kill this guy, and he's kind of right. Even though like they don't see completely eye to eye on that. So I think people like frame it as like this massive conflict that proves like they're incompatible or something. But like if you actually go back and watch it, the conflict actually isn't like that crazy. And even then, Aang kind of makes the right call there. So Firebending X, where X is fire. So you can also see the black as like Zuko basically wanting to become Fire Lord and gain power, so he can use that power to potentially make the world better, like white goals through black means potentially, but that might be like a little bit more of a stretch. Legendary creature, human noble ally, makes sense. Literally Fire Lord at the moment, so basically a king or an emperor, and then ally, because allies with Aang. You can literally see Aang in the background here. I mean, the art's very interesting here because usually when the water glows like this, because Katara's healing, but she didn't really make like a healing motion. She's kind of like looks like she's using it as like a weapon or something, or maybe freezing. So the blue light is just interesting, I guess. And so very interesting contrast here. Like this bridge is like almost like taken up by Katara's light, and then here you have like more of like an orange, like sunset kind of effect here. So it shows like almost this like this is almost like Katara's influence almost, or like what you should be focusing on. And here's again pretty simple. So even though Aang is here and these two people here, these people are like farther back and less detailed, and these two people are literally in shadow. So here, so it's like this is literally like looks like Zuko kind of walking out into the open and the light shining on him, which helps bring him into focus. And then you have this almost acts like a weird frame almost, but today this war is finally over. Toph, the first metal bender, red, green, white. I guess it's fair enough to assign Toph. I guess I wouldn't complain. Toph definitely very red vibes in the sense that she's very like follow her heart and does what she wants. She hates being told what to do. She really extremely values her freedom, and like part of the reason for that is because she felt like she was basically babied by her parents. So she hates like basically people like telling her what to do or like trying to say what she can and can't do. So that makes sense as a character like values freedom. White again also makes sense because sometimes, I mean, I don't think she always does the right thing, but she probably still has a strong moral center and wants to do the right thing. And then green, I want to say it's, I mean, so there is like an episode where she's like, so the green can be taken a couple ways here. So first of all, Toph is blind, and it could come from the idea that she's accepting her blindness instead of like fighting against it. So instead of like trying to cure her blindness, she basically learns to work with her blindness and accept like who she like how she is. It could also represent there's like a swamp episode basically where she like when she gets older, and also during the swamp episode. So during the swamp episode, like Aang sees like a vision of Toph, and then Toph later, like in Korra, basically like lives in the swamp. So you could maybe see like the connection to that, like connection to like spirituality of sense, and like oneness with the world almost, or accepting the world for as it is. Or it could just represent earthbending, and earthbending like maybe like by extension like stubbornness in a sense, like in a way, although that might be more of a stretch. Non-token artifacts you control are lands in addition to the other types. So Toph is like the first person to ever like figure out a metal bend, and she does it by figuring out there's like little bits of impurities in the metal, and then you can bend those impurities to bend the metal. Because the idea is that metal is like an extension of the earth, but just like a purified version. But non-token, so the idea is here that she can that most artifacts are gonna be like metal. Like they're not always metal. Sometimes artifacts are like food and stuff. But the idea is that basically she can bend like metal things now. So she can bend artifacts and use them as lands to draw power from and to use. At the beginning of your end step, Earthbend 2. Target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature with haste. That's still a land. Put 2 +1/+1 counters in it. When it dies or is exiled, return to the battlefield with tapped. So just to be clear, Toph does not literally give lands life. This is representing of her being able to Earthbend. So the idea is she's moving the lands basically. Which is earthbending, she can move the lands and get them to attack you, but she's still doing it herself. And then so now that you're earthbending the lands, you can move your lands to get them to attack people. And then obviously when they die, they come back to the battle, which is interesting because I haven't really seen a lands with, like a lot of creature lands with that effect. Like usually when you turn your lands into a creature, it's like if you swing and they die, it's like well now you're just down a land. But it's interesting here that like when it dies, or is exiled, it just returns to the battlefield. Like it's still just like a piece of like rock. Sokka Bold Boomeranger, blue red. When Sokka enters, discard up to two cards and draw that many cards. Whenever you cast an artifact or lesson spell, put a +1/+1 encounter on Sokka. I'm just a guy with a boomerang. Whatever you say, buddy. Very interesting perspective going on here with like how we're kind of like looking up at Sokka. It almost seems like the world's almost like sort of bending with Sokka as he bends his boomerang. So Sokka's kind of like a strategist of the team. Like that's kind of like the role he plays. So the idea that he discards up to 2 cards and draws that many cards, it's like the idea that he can like he's basically like helping you strategize, like look for cards, look for lands. I don't know, man, those are something you can see. Oh my god. Interesting that like because red is usually the one that like discards first and draws cards. So it's interesting that like it's interesting that despite having blue, they go for the discard and then draw cards instead of draw and then discard. But I guess the idea is that you have control over what you're doing there. Whenever you cast an artifact or lesson spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Sokka. So artifact could represent the boomerang, but it could also represent like he has other episodes where like he's like, for example, he's also like he becomes just like a swordsman. He uses the boomerang. He uses like his mace. So obviously he's like a lot of like equipment and stuff. And he even helps one guy in the episode like come up with basically invent bombs to fight out the Fire Nation and fight them off. So there definitely is like a connection between Sokka and artifacts, and he also steals some scrolls for like to help come to figure out to learn about like the eclipse to know when to attack the Fire Nation. So there is definitely like a connection between Sokka and artifacts and like his planning, and then also lesson like the idea that like well, first of all, Sokka does learn quite a lot of lessons like how to not be sexist and stuff. So it could represent that, but it could also represent just like a strategist. Like every time he learns a lesson, he gets a buff. I'm just a guy with a boomerang. I'm sure you are, Sokka. Did I talk about the color coordination here? Like obviously blue, a little bit of yellow because it's like a white blue card, and then red, and you can even see like a little black in the uniform, so red, black, and even gold, like gold trim. Like I said, sometimes white's associated with gold, green, white, and there's even like red lighting. Like she's in some sort of like Fire Nation facility, and she has like red lighting, and then she shares off as green, like it's sort of like vanilla tan, white color with like gold. And Sokka, he's like mostly blue, but there is like I think like a red tint coming from somewhere. Like this is very definitely like a red tint on something. So Katara Wild Tribe's Hope. This art is very interesting to me I'm not gonna talk too much about the flavor because it's the same. It's just a variation of the last card. This card is very interesting to me because of the fact that like the water here is rendered like not super realistically. Like it's more stylized. Like it reminds me like this water like the waves in like those old Japanese paintings. Like looks closer to something like this. Like this water, the way it's rendered feels very like 2-dimensional. Like there isn't like a ton of like there's some shading, but there isn't like a ton of like detailing on the water. It feels like it feels like a more like it feels kind of like a variation of this almost. And it's clear that like ATLA takes a lot of like inspiration from like especially Japanese with the Fire Nation, but also like Asian cultures and Inuit cultures. But I'm not 100% sure if it's meant to reference this specifically. But it just gives me what I'm saying. It just gives me like a similar vibe to like to how it's rendered, because like especially even like back here, the water here is rendered so much more realistically. Like you can see through it, you can see like all the little shine effects, etc., etc. And then here it's like much more simplistically, but it feels like an active choice of some sort. And there's also like these little symbols down here. So I don't know. There's like a water bending symbol here, like the Water Nation symbol, the Water Tribes. Here we have Father Zuko. I think this is like a weird point to use like for this Zuko skin, the Zuko card version here, because like this is called Fire Lord Zuko, so it's clearly Zuko like after it becomes Fire Lord and is redeemed, but here it's like clearly like the design of Zuko before, like when he's still chasing the Avatar, 'cause he still has like the ponytail, or top knot or whatever. So like kind of a weird choice. Because I definitely would also not consider like, I don't know. Appa Steadfast Guardian, 2 generic, 2 white, legendary creature, Bison ally. So I mean Bison. I don't think it's like confirmed in universe, but I believe Appa is inspired by a manatee and a bison. But Appa's a flying bison, but no one ever calls him like a manatee. So I guess maybe canonically he's just a bison, even though like in the supplemental material they mentioned that he's also manatee inspired. Like he does follow the hybrid animal designs. Like philosophy is what I'm saying, I guess. Like he's not just like a bison, but Flash flying. So Flash he can fly in suddenly. Flying, he can fly. When Appa enters airbend, any number of other target land permits you control. So for those who don't know, like the idea is that like bison were like some of the first airbenders, and people learn how to airbend from bison. So Appa, when he does like a tail move or whatever, and like releases like a gust of wind, he is airbending. Appa can't airbend. When Appa is flying, he is airbending. In the same way that like when Aang is flying on his glider, Aang is airbending. Exile them while each one is exiled. It's only cast it for 2 rather than its mana cost. So it's pretty interesting what airbending does. So airbending, like I said, is very evasive in philosophy. Like being able to like, jump in and out, being hard to hit. So it makes sense that you might represent this by like flickering, basically. Like you can basically dodge stuff or exile stuff by like airbending it away and then being able to bring it back, or something like being able to airbend itself to like escape something and then come back in a flash. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. I guess the idea is like maybe Appa's carrying people here, so it's like kind of combine the idea that like airbending is kind of evasive and elusive with the idea that also Appa can carry people like in and out of battle. Momo friendly flyer, white, 1 white, legendary creature, lemur bat ally. So yeah, Momo is like a combination of a lemur and a bat, and also eyes with Aang. Flying. The first non-lemur creature spell with flying you cast during each of your spells costs 1 less to cast. So I think the idea here is, even though this kind of applies to like many different creatures, the idea is that you want to pair it with Appa in theory, so you can cast Appa for like 3, and then drop a. So it's kind of cute because like Momo's smaller and there's a cheaper mana cost, and Appa's like bigger. But the idea is like if you play Momo, then Appa's more likely to show up, or it's easier to beckon. Whenever the creature you control with flying enters, Momo gets +1/+1 to land at a turn. Yeah, I'm not 100% really sure what that represents flavor wise, other than they just needed like something for Momo to do. I guess the idea is maybe Momo can fly with things. I don't know. So this is just cute. It's like reads almost like an old school anatomy book. That's just cute. Little pause. Did I forget? Oh yeah. Oh. So the art here for Appa is very interesting. So I think it's like the armor Appa's wearing in like the Siege on the Fire Nation. I want to say during the Day of the Black Sun specifically. Yeah, the Day of the Black Sun. So very interesting choice for Appa in terms of like color. I mean, in terms of like art, especially since like Appa's already like pretty white, so like color coordination wise, it probably make more sense to not have this like weird reddish armor on Appa. But nothing complaining. I think it's just an interesting choice. It's very interesting how this is framed. Like everything's like feels like it's zooming towards Appa. Like Appa is really big and sitting here, and everything's like almost like pointing in a way. Like the way it's designed, like all pointing towards Appa, like to draw your attention to Appa, and then Appa's creating like this blast of wind to knock these guys away. And Momo's pretty similar, like pretty simple. It's just a lot more peaceful, not in combat, but like just like light shining on Momo, and then these like less detailed birds to show that he's in flight. So that is one thing that Avatar has. Avatar has a lot of hybrid creatures. Most of the creatures in Avatars are hybrids. Like they have like turtle ducks. Like they don't have normal ducks. They have like platypus bears. They do not just have normal bears. There is one exception to this, one major exception, and that's that one of the Earth Kings has a bear, and it's played for like a joke. Like they acknowledge it. Like apparently like non-hybrid animals do exist. They're just like super rare because like when they bring it up, it's like, oh, he's see the pet king and his bear, and they're like, you mean a platypus bear? No, it's just a bear. Like it's like considered very weird, like almost like something like a once in a lifetime thing to see. Wow, almost weird fucking fingers, bro. Oh yeah, that's one of the air temples. I don't know which one Aang visited right after he left the water tribe. I want to say it had to be the southern, right? It had to be like the southern temple or something. Okay, Sokka's haiku. Okay, because we see this in the, I will play the short, but um, so basically, I guess you could also maybe they're also clearly associating Sokka with like blue philosophy here. I guess you could maybe equate that with like Sokka learning that like there's more like so Sokka's like very like traditional gender roles when we first meet him, and he's even like very sexist. So him learning like grow outside that, and learning that people can kind of be whatever ever you could see as like kind of like blue. And also Sokka, like I said, is kind of like the strategist of the team. And I don't think being smart necessarily makes you blue, even though blue smart values intelligence. But sometimes Magic the Gathering likes to keep things simple. And it's like if you care a lot about information, if you think information is like the way to go, you might be blue. And especially makes sense for Sokka because Sokka is not a bender, so he kind of has to play in a way that where he has to kind of like outsmart people if he's fighting. He like trying to just like directly just charge, like an Earthbender by yourself is probably not going to end well. So it is pretty interesting that they chose to go with blue for Sokka, besides like the blue coloring. Instant lesson, counter target spell, draw a card, then mill 3 cards, untap a target land. So in the scene, I think what happens is I guess it represents him countering her poetry, and then he draws a card because he's starting to understand haiku, but then he mills 3 cards, which could represent maybe him fucking up at a certain point because he does fuck up at some point. And then untap target land, which I maybe just like could represent being re-energized, like can you do something else? Like he keeps going.
Iconic avatar scenes in the set, like Sokka's haiku.
All right, because we saw Sokka's haiku, I will play the short because it is only like 2 minutes.
Same old phone? Nah. Upgrade to the new Galaxy Z Fold 7.
Stop it, please.
What's this?
Through all the long night, winter moon glows with bright love. Sleet her silver tears.
Poetry. I am so sorry. Something struck me in the rear. I just wound up here.
5, 7, then 5. Syllables mark a haiku. Remarkable oaf.
They call me Sokka, that is, in the water tribe. I am not an oaf.
Chittering monkey. In the spring he climbs treetops and thinks himself tall. Ooh.
You think you're so smart with your fancy little words? This is not so hard.
Ooh. Whole seasons are spent mastering the form, the style. None calls it easy.
I calls it easy. Like I paddle my canoe, I'll paddle yours too.
There's nuts and there's fruits. In fall the clean plum drops. Always to be squashed.
Squish squash, sling that slang. I'm always right back at you. Like my boomerang. That's right, I'm Sokka. It's pronounced with an aka. Young ladies, I rocked ya.
That's one too many syllables there, bub.
So he kind of Sokka's been kind of like a dick in this scene, so kind of deserved, but it's really funny he's just off by 1. So I guess maybe now that I think about the mill also represents the idea that as Sokka continues doing his haiku, he's sort of like you can get ahead of yourself. Like if you don't have enough cards in your library, you can run out of ideas and fuck up and get yourself killed. So Fated Firepower. So this is like okay, hold on. Fated Firepower. I gotta talk slower. Fated Firepower. X generic 3 red. Enchantment Flash. When enchantment enters with this enchantment enters with X fire counters on it. If a source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent on an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus an amount of damage equals the number of valid counters on this enchantment instead. So basically, this moment represents Iroh during Sozin's comment, in which he storms bossing Say, but to save it from the Fire Nation. So Sozin's comment is like a comment that comes like once every 100 years, and it significantly boosts the power of firebending by like a massive margin. Like people like blasting like huge swaths of fire. So the idea is that he's using it to like help boost his firebending, which is represented by the fact that you put a fire counter on it, and then when you deal damage, it does like an amount of like an increased amount of like damage because there's just more fire. Fated Firepower, X generic 3. Well, I mean, okay, I already read this, but here we have the little Fire Nation symbol with a little bit of like fire. And here, this is a different scene. This is the scene with Aang and Zuko learning how to firebend properly from dragons. Because the reason for this scene is that up until this point, Zuko was bending with like, and most people just in general at this point in time, they source their firebending from hatred. Like firebending draws a lot of power from emotion, especially. So their firebending is sourced from like hatred and anger. But in this scene, the idea is that Zuko's no longer as angry, so his firebending is suddenly much weaker. So they go to the dragons to learn how to firebend using a source that like just isn't anger and rage and like other emotions instead. And this is very interesting because like where this represents like power from like an external object granting you like extra power, here is like the idea that Zuko and Aang are becoming better firebenders because they're like better understanding firebending philosophy and learning like a new source of power, which is represented by like the fire counters in this case. So here we have like two of like the exact same cards, and the flavors being kind of like represented a bit differently or having different reasons for why it was chosen.
Fated Firepower asks who you are.
Oh yeah, you could also see like, okay, they said ask who you are, so you could also see this as maybe like Iroh, representative like Iroh turning against the Fire Nation, and then Zuko and Aang questioning like what it means to firebend. Like, because up until this point, Aang was like very afraid to firebend because one of the earliest times he used it, so the bending arts, the order they give you the bending arts in the beginning is the order that the avatar is supposed to learn them. Like, so for example, if you're an airbender, you go water, earth, fire, right? Because you already started with air. You start with air, and then you go through the other ones, right? And if you're an earthbender, you go earth, fire, air, water. So Aang was very afraid to bend fire and basically was a reason to do it. But here he learned that like firebending is like has more positive aspects to it than just burning and shitting on people. So there's also that. And it's actually kind of interesting because if you actually look at like the order Aang is supposed to learn them, it kind of makes sense that you wouldn't want an airbender to learn like firebending immediately after learning airbending, because firebending is heavily because airbending is like the element of freedom, and as Iroh describes it, so it's like very like. And obviously, like air, it's harder to hurt people with air. Like you just have to use strong gust. So it's kind of interesting that the idea of like air being connected to freedom and just kind of doing what you want, and then suddenly learning firebending, which is like very dangerous and very passionate, is very interesting because it's like maybe the reason they want you to learn waterbending, earthbending first is because like they give you some sort of discipline, like discipline needed to learn fire. But so this is very good art. Interesting how much blue there is, even though it's not like a blue. Okay, I know lightning represented as blue and like Avatar, but like usually it's interesting it's how much blue there is. Like, because usually they try to cut it down and like just show it's like a really red card. Redirect lightning, instant lesson. As an additional cost to pay the spell, pay 5 life or pay 2. So this is already very interesting because sometimes if you don't do it perfectly, you can actually get hurt while redirecting lightning. So you could interpret this as it doing. You either have the energy or a skill to do it, like by just paying the extra, or you fuck it up kind of and you hurt yourself, even if you manage to do it. And it can kill you if you fuck it up bad enough. But I think the idea is just like if you do it imperfectly, it hurts you. Change the target spell or ability with a single target. So I mean, it's basically what it sounds like. It's exactly what you do. Because like for example, lightning bolt is like a very popular red card and it still does damage. So the idea is like someone targets you with say a lightning bolt or something like that. You can redirect a lightning bolt back at them. A waterbender lets their defense become their offense, turning their opponent's energy against them. I learned a way to do this with lightning. Iroh. So one of the things I love about Avatar is like how they represent like the different bending styles and like martial arts. Especially with how how like they interact. Because at first it's very easy to think of them as like isolated, like, oh, if you're an earthbender, hold on. I just another bot. It's like, oh, if you're an earthbender, then you just want to stick to learning earthbending. But it's like, no, even if you're just an earthbender, you're not the avatar. You can learn stuff from like watching a firebender, or firebenders can learn stuff from earth from like watching waterbenders. And even if they're not like shooting lightning or something or redirecting lightning, it's like you can sometimes you'll notice that their styles can change depending on who they hang around with. Like there's like a very like interesting scene where like Katara's fighting Hama, who's a bloodbender, and then she surprises Hama because she basically holds her stance like an earthbender and then blocks it instead of like redirecting around her like most waterbenders would. So that's pretty interesting too. And I think it's something also Korra people don't appreciate about Korra too is that part of the reason that in Korra most of it resembles mixed martial arts is that the idea, at least in Republic City, is the idea that there's been more like crossing over and like cross cultural exchange. So that's the reason like most stuff has become more homogenized and more mixed in certain ways. Even if you're like a big fan of like, oh, I like it when all their bendings are like perfectly distinct. It's like in Korra they do sometimes have distinct arts, but like the idea that like it's in the future, like people have been like learning more about different bending arts. And here's a very interesting piece of art once again. See, like here, like this is what I mean. Kind of like even though the lightning's blue, they kind of like tone down the blue a little bit by making it duller and make it very. They really try to emphasize that it's a red card by putting red and orange everywhere, and emphasizing like Zuko's red and orange all over with like lighting and stuff. Here, it's like if you look at this, you might almost assume it's like a blue red card. But also very interesting that they made the sun blue here. Also the way this is framed, it kind of looks like it's could be during the final battle. I'm not really sure. I don't remember Zuko having a chance to redirect lightning during the final battle. Zula just targets the Katara, so. But here we have like fire here, and I guess, and I think Ozai tries to hit Zuko with lightning. So this might represent when Ozai tries to hit him with lightning because he's the sword and stuff, and this represents a different moment. You know, like you can see the fire over here, and this fire might be Azul, so it looks kind of blue, bluish tint. It looks bluer.
Bender you want to be. Collect avatar.
So here's the rise of Sozin. It makes sense to be Blackheart because the idea is like Sozin wants to gain power. He wants to be in control. He wants to like rule the world, and that's probably the reason why the reason he wanted to kill the Avatar. The reason he killed all the Airbenders is because he wanted to stop the Avatar from reincarnating into an Airbender, and then that way he could rule the world like unopposed. So it makes sense that Sozin and Sozin's card would be black. So destroy all creatures represents like the Airbending genocide. Choose a card name. Search target opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 cards with that name. Exile them, then that player shuffles. So I think this represents like specifically the fact that it's 4. Well, I guess 4 is also because Magic the Gathering usually only have 4 copies of card in a lot of different formats. But also could represent as like Sozin searching for like the Avatar's reincarnation and killing whoever might be a reincarnation of the Avatar. Exile the Saga, then return to the battlefield under transform under your control. Fire Lord Sozin, Menace, Firebending 3, so it makes sense. Very menacing. Firebending 3, whenever this creature attacks, add 3 red. This mana lasts until the end of combat. So it's very interesting that it lasts to the end of combat. And the idea is that you want to use it while you're attacking. So it gives a little bit more flavor to like Firebending. As the idea is that you're when you firebend, you're attacking, and then while you're attacking, you can like add some extra oomph or something else to that. Whenever Fire Lord Sozin deals combat damage to a player, you may pay X, generic X. When you do, put any number of target creature cards with total mana X or less from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It's a little weird that draws from your graveyard. I understand it's a black card and needs something interesting for Sozin to do. I think it just represents Sozin just gathering forces to kill people. He doesn't have the ability to resurrect anyone or anything. Also, hold on. Just interesting art. So one thing I talk about is like kind of like how height and like not like height, not just height in the sense of like, oh, you're 6'1" or whatever, but like how height is like used to like show like in a position of power, in the sense that like even if someone is short, you can show someone in a position of power. I'm not saying someone is short, but even if someone's short, you can show them in a position of power by having them high up and high, like standing above people. So here we know Sozin's the one in control because he's above. He's literally like put above all these like soldiers, and these soldiers are just like all like faceless grunts. Like they don't have like faces, and then you can see Sozin's face, and he's put like literally above all these people below. And here we like this trail of fire, which is pretty interesting to show that like, he's a firebending. This could also represent like Sozin's comet. I think like the idea that like he's using Sozin's comet to his advantage. I forget exactly what this paper could be referencing. I don't know if it references Roku somehow, or just like learning about Sozin's comet from somewhere. And here we have like the fire. So like as Sozin's comet comes, his fire is stronger. And even like the fire's connected to Sozin's comet. And here we have like I think it's like when Sozin fights Roku, but Roku spares him because he's like you are my friend, so I'm gonna go easy. I'm gonna let you chill. but don't do that shit again. And then the second Roku's dead, so it's like, all right, okay, well, I'm gonna go genocide people. And once again, interesting is how much red there is in some of this. They clearly try to put like a lot of gray and like darks, like darker colors to show that's a black card, but I don't know, pretty interesting. And here we have clearly the fire because firebender. So once again, we have this art that feels like this seems like a lot less realistic. It's like more flat in the sense there's still shading, there's like less shading, less lighting, so it's like more stylized, which is pretty interesting. And once again, we have like some of the same. So here we have the sun. In case you don't know, firebending is powered by like the sun, and it gets more powerful when the sun's out. So here we have the sun, and then we have something's common around that, giving like a boost like firebenders, and then we have like all the armories and like the fire, which is very menacing, like the smoke and the fire, like the idea that they're invading like the world. And then this is being burnt. I don't know if that's again. I don't know. I don't remember this paper's reference to. It could be reference to Roku or something, or some tree or whatever, but. And then here once again, this is like very simple art. It's just like gathering all the fire here, like consolidating power and fire. Avatar enthusiast. So this is basically a running gag from like one of the characters. Like they were just like whenever they saw the avatar, they just like lose it and start foaming. So 2 generic and a white creature, white human peasant ally. Whenever another ally you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Basically, since Aang is an ally, and I guess they're going with like an ally theme of the set. Like whenever the avatar, like one of his friends enters, like, oh, you know the avatar, they kind of lose it and get a +1/+1 counter. There he is. The avatar's on Kyoshi. 2 generic. Aang, airbending master. So this is clearly Aang when he only knows airbending. He hasn't learned waterbending yet. It seems like they're going with like airbending be represented by like white mana mostly. 4 generic, 1 white. Which makes sense because white tends to have a strong connection to like spirituality, and the reason for that is not just because like not that other colors cannot be spiritual. It's the idea that white believes in an objective morality, and the idea that like, so if you believe in spirit, you believe in like that, you know, doing something bad, it can like affect like your spirit or whatever. So white tends to lean heavily into like this idea of like spirituality, and this idea that like doing bad or good things doesn't always affect you physically, but can affect you like spiritually or mentally, etc. Like being greedy, or not like spiritual enough, etc. Wind is often like shown like in avatars as being like sort of like this bluish or grayish color, like but like also kind of like transparent, so you know it's not water. This is pretty interesting, and it's also like it helps draw our eye to Aang, like the way that everything's like literally rolling around this tornado towards Aang as he like propels it through, and even the environment is so interesting. Like the environment is drawn in a way that looks like it's bending with the tornado, like almost like the earth itself is gonna get like sucked into like into this tube, which I don't think is supposed to. When I point out stuff like this, like it's not always literal. I think it's like more like symbolic to show like Aang's power, like to give like the art a little extra oomph, like just show you like this isn't like something you like to trifle with. Legendary creature, human avatar ally. When Aang enters, airbend another target creature. Exile it. When it's exiled, its owner may cast it for 2 rather than its mana cost. So once again, we have this idea of air being connected to like evasiveness, and but also like movement. Like you can move it in and out of the battlefield. Like you can airbend in, you can like push someone out, you can pull someone in, etc., etc. Whenever one or more creatures you control leave the battlefield without dying, you get an experience counter. So that's really cute. So the idea is that every time you save somebody. So this is like, I think it's like the first time I really thought about where we've seen like a card that explicitly cares about things not dying in this way. Because usually it's like, oh, something leaves the battlefield, or something like is exiled or whatever, or something dies. But this is the first one that's like, hey, you do not want to kill. You want to exile things, but you do not want them to die. Okay, you don't want them to die. So it's very interesting that this card like is very cute that like whenever Aang saves someone, basically is that he gets like a experience counter. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white ally creature token for each experience counter you have. So very weird, but I think this represents just gathering like allies. Like yes, there is the gang like Katara, Zuko, etc., Toph, and Sokka, but there is also like people like when they invade like the Fire Nation, for example, they have like a lot of allies. They like swamp benders, all that kind of stuff. So I think this represents just gathering allies across the like nations to unite. And it's very interesting that like they chose Aang to have Aang and the Airbenders is white when like Aang is like the main conflicting force that Aang has to face is of course the seemingly mostly red aligned like firebenders, red and black firebenders. So that's very interesting. Here we have Katara Waterbending Master. Once again, I was talking about this earlier. Generic 1, blue. I was talking about like I was talking about like how I wouldn't necessarily consider like Katara necessarily center blue, but I can see why they chose blue for here. Besides like the waterbending, besides like the water symbology with blue is like the idea that one of Katara's like main struggles is like, especially in book 1, is like, oh, you're a woman, so you don't fight, you learn how to heal, and then she's like, I can decide my own destiny. I can do what I want. So like this idea of like blue, this idea that you can control your destiny or be who you want to be, and that you're not like just tied to like you don't just accept your place like in the universe. Like I was like, oh, you're a woman, so you do this. Like, all right, it's like no, you have control over who you want to be and who you are. You can control that. Um, Legendary creature, human warrior, ally. Whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, you gain experience counter. I mean, I don't 100% know what this represents during in Katara's case specifically. Other than it's a blue card that wants to care about casting spells during your opponent's turn, because blue cards are more likely to have flash. Whenever Katara attacks, you may draw a card for each experience counter you have. If you do, discard a card. So, I mean, Katara does have moments where she's looking for knowledge. Like for example, in one episode, she steals a scroll for some. I gotta talk slower. Blah 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 blah. For example, in one episode, she steals a scroll from some pirates to like learn how to waterbend. Like she's very ambitious when it comes to like learning new things. At least in regards to waterbending. So like she goes out of her way to like learn waterbending stuff, and she like learns from like she gets Paku to teach her. She gets waterbending scrolls, etc. She practices every day. So it makes sense that like even though it makes sense that Katara would care about like having more information in this way. The strength of your heart makes you who you are. And this art is very like simple. A lot of blue. They really when it says it's a blue card, they put like a lot of water, but also like ice. Like which I think we have seen her do is like surfboard like on a piece of ice. And I think we saw Aang do it maybe. Maybe he's just doing that in the log. It's been a while since I've seen Avatar. I'd have to rewatch it. So here with the surf and the water. It's very interesting like how like this feels like less detailed than some of the other art, but like not in a bad way. It's just like an interesting way to think about. Partially because she's like not like as close as Aang as in this art. She's a bit farther away, and she's in one of like the waterbending poses. Like each of the bending art takes inspiration from real life like martial arts. Waterbending in particular is from Tai Chi. And it's kind of weird because like some characters might be in the same element, but they might have different styles. Like I forget Earthbend. I think Earthbending is like I forget the style Earthbending takes inspiration from, but Toph specifically is like Mantis style. But not every Earthbender uses Mantis style. So Cabbage Merchant, the Cabbage Merchant, 2 generic, 1 green, legendary creature, human citizen. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, create a food token. It's an artifact with 2 generic. So you can see Aang with. I think it's Aang and Katara, or Aang is like a little disguise. It could be like Aang and Boomy, but it looks like Aang is like a little disguise. His old man disguise like Katara, about to like wreck this guy's shit. So the Cabbage Merchant is a character whose like gimmick is that he travels from place to place trying to sell his cabbages, and then some shit always happens to him where his cabbages get destroyed. Most notably, it's usually like Aang or somebody else like running through and then like bending it away or something, or like smashing it to pieces. Sometimes it's like other stuff. Sometimes it's like Border Patrol like smashing all his cabbages. So I guess the idea is that every time you do something, this guy's like preparing, getting his cabbages ready, and then whenever creature deals combat damage to you, sacrifice a food token. And so he's preparing his cabbages while this is happening, and then once he's set up, if something like knocks you over, he like loses cabbages, so you can scream, "My cabbages, my cabbages!" Tap 2, untap foods you control. Add 1 mana of any color. Kind of a weird. I don't really know what that represents. Because the thing about the Cabbage Merchant is that he's mostly like a Yag character, so I couldn't really tell you what. Like the reason he's green is because he makes food. I can't say whether or not he would or wouldn't be green just because we don't see enough of him. Like he's green, sure. He makes cabbages. Cabbages are green. He makes food. Green cares about food, like sure. Like because I can't really have I don't really have like any kind of argument why he'd be anything else. Like I can't argue why he'd be green, but I can't argue why he'd be white or blue or red or black really. So I don't really know what he wants besides to sell cabbages or why he wants to sell cabbages. And interesting that you can tap like cabbages to add mana of any color. I guess the idea, so you can cast bigger stuff. But anyway, this is taking way longer than I thought. I didn't think this would take 30 minutes to talk about. I think it's fucking hilarious that they put Azula here. Like it's like, okay, we need the members of the gang, right? So we need Katara, obviously, Toph, Zuko, Aang. Who's the 5th guy? Who's the 5th person we want? Fuck Zuko. Fuck Sokka. Put Azula on there. I can't really blame them because Azula's like she's cool as fuck, but like it's kind of a funny choice that you have like the like. I mean, I guess they want to put benders probably. It's like because you watch Avatar to see the bending, even though yeah, I do. I'm working on that. I have ADHD, so that's part of the reason. So I assume the reason they put Azula here is just because they wanted to show all benders, and like Sokka's not a bender, so he's gonna be in one of the other sets. Here we have Ozai on one. I think it's Ozai during like the comet where he's using his fire to fly around and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'll probably talk about the rest of this later.
Last Airbender. Tuesday, October 28th on the debut stream. Flamio, Hotman.
All right, I'll try to talk slower as I go over this Edge of Eternity stuff. Also, Flamio Hotman was a reference to. So basically, there's some episodes where like Aang and the gang are traversing through the Fire Nation, and then like Aang is trying to tell him like kind of like basically move to the Fire Nation, but all his information is out of date because he's like he was like from 100 years ago. So like he's like, oh yeah, they used to say like Flamio Hotman, but like no one says that anymore. It's just like a super weird thing for him to say. So everyone's like, who the fuck is this kid saying Flamio Hotman? We'll see how much we get through here. Dual Son of Depths. I might just do it one color each day. I'm not really sure because this is already going on longer than I thought with just Avatar. So okay, so Anti-Causal Visage, 6 generic. Creature Eldrazi. When this creature leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Then you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand onto the battlefield tap. Warp 4 generic. I already talked about like this card art before, so I'm not sure how much I want to get into it, but it's very interesting. That looks like it's almost holding its own head. And also, obviously there's like a wasteland out here, so it has like that sort of like rooty, like I think it's specifically based on like the roots of teeth for a lot of like the Eldrazi, like this fleshy root kind of thing, and it's kind of built in a way that it's like this thing could either be very massive, like it kind of looks like, oh, it's just this thing, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this thing might be fucking massive. Like you look here and like this could all be part of its body, but it could also just be like weird Eldrazi shit. It's kind of to tell. And here we have like a wasteland. It's a bit ambiguous whether this Eldrazi created the wasteland or if it's just like emerging out of a wasteland or something. But how big it could be, it could have created it. So the warp here, I think, just represents the fact that the Eldrazi seem like they could enter the Chaos Wall and thus like kind of warp, like do a little bit of like web travel in a way. I don't. Web travel is probably wrong, but it seems like they can come in and out of the weft. So I think it's just what it represents, as opposed to like being able to web travel kind of like a Drix can. When this creature leaves the battlefield, draw a card. Then you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from your hand onto the battlefield tab. So I guess the idea is it's just here, it's just kind of like warping reality. Like even if you get rid of it, something else will come and replace it. I guess ideally you'd want like another Eldrazi or something. Wish there's flavor text on it because then I could have more talking about. You have Tezzeret, Cruel Captain. I've already talked about, once again, a card I've already talked about a ton. I don't think like the colorless here necessarily represents like a philosophy change so much as just like a mechanical thing. Like the idea that he's like so much of an artifact now, that they made him generic to like represent that. Because Tezzeret has been like historically blue-black, and he still has like some like the blue-purple coloration he sometimes has. But I think it's mostly just there for like mechanics, just to show that he's like, because they want you to play with him with artifacts. And Tezzeret's always cared about artifacts, but now he's like colorless like an artifact. And here we have there's a very interesting effect here where it's like you see the shine on his head, so it like draws attention. There's a shine here, and then like the shine gets really bright here and here. So like you look at him, and he already contrasts with the gold in the way where he's like a lot of dark. He's dark black and gray and brown mostly with like some purple and blue, and that helps really contrast against like this bright like gold, and then it's made even brighter by like the light. And they want you to draw attention to his head because it's like a really bright gold up here. And here all planeswalkers do this way. They kind of stick out of the card if they reach. Which I've talked about before. I wrote like an entire article about this where it's I talk about how planeswalkers, like the idea is like since planeswalkers can leave at any point by planeswalking, and they're not stuck in the world. They're not stuck within planes in the same way that like normal people are. So they can basically just leave the quote unquote like frame or the scene that they are in a way that most characters could not. Legendary Planeswalker Tezzeret. Whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret. Untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it just rewards you for playing artifacts, and you can buff your artifact creatures. Like Tezzeret cares about Tezzeret specifically. His ability is to control metal. So the idea is that like most artifacts would be made of metal. Not all artifacts, because there's like foods and stuff. But the idea is like if you have like a sword or like a gun, and it probably has metal in it, and so he can like untap it so you can use it more, and also you can like buff your artifact creatures because he can help control them. Search your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Once again, represents his ability to control metal, so you can bring. So the idea is that he's just bringing something made of metal to him. I don't know. I can't really say why it's mana value 1 or less, other than it's just for balance reasons. Like it just be so. You get an emblem with at the beginning of your combat on your turn. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on target artifact creature, target artifact you control. If it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature. So I don't think we ever see Tezzeret really make robots or do anything with robots specifically. But I guess the idea is that he's just animating it. I mean, usually that'd just be a construct, but I guess the idea is because they care about robots in the set, it'd just be weird if this was like the one construct. So they made it like a robot, and I guess the idea is you could make it a joke about how Sammy interprets like Sammy themselves asked if Tezzeret was like a cyborg or a robot, and Tezzeret was like no. So you could maybe see it as like a joke where it's kind of like other people on the edge will see it as like a robot. Like it may be more of a construct, but like, oh, that's a robot. Whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret. So this is one thing I've talked about previously, whereas I think some people take the graveyard and stuff like that too literally. So the idea behind Planeswalkers is this is not life, this is not toughness, this is a loyalty counter. So what this represents is when the loyalty counter hits 0, the Planeswalker isn't always necessarily dying. You've expended all their loyalty, they leave. So like people always ask like, well, what's the flavor? Because like if you summon Bolas, clearly Bolas is like so OP, like why wouldn't you just instantly win? And the idea is because like, well, the Planeswalkers, they only have so much loyalty, so you can only get them to do so much stuff. So it's like, yeah, I guess I'll do you a favor, right? And then, but that expends loyalty. And if you burn through all your loyalty or all your favors, and they just leave. And it's just like, oh, I took too much damage. Fuck you, I'm out of here. So the idea here is like, whenever you bring an artifact, is that it kind of like piques Tezzeret's interest, and he's more willing to stay around longer. Like you're gaining your loyalty, you're bringing stuff to him. That's basically it for that. All Fate Stalker. 3 generic, 1 white. Creature Drix Assassin. When this creature enters, exile up to 1 target non-assassin creature until this one leaves the battlefield. Warp 1 white. You may cast this card from your hand for its warp cost. Exile this creature at the beginning of your next step, and then you may cast from exile on a later turn. You again. So the Drix are like a new creature type, and the thing they can all do is they can all warp because they can all weft walk. So they can all like within the edge, only cats and Drix can naturally weft walk. Everything else has to like use basically like a specific like machine and technology, and like use like most of them have to use stations. I think some of them have engines, but most have to use stations. So the idea here is that like all the Drix can weft walk because they can all warp because they can all weft walk. And here I think I've already talked about this art like a ton. It's called All Fate Stalker. So and the flavor text seems to imply that they've been after this person for a while. And it seems like the Drix also deal with like weird time shenanigans, so that would also make sense. So once again, this Drix is kind of highlighted by the fact like the golden rays of like the sun are shining down on them, and then this person's kind of like they have like a bit of like the golden rays, but like they're mostly like covered in, like blue, which maybe also like shows the Drix's influence almost, like their blue magic, whatever. So that's interesting. Asteli Reclaimer. Three generic, 2 white. Creature Angel Warrior. Flying. When this creature enters, return target non-creature. Non-land permanent card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast the spell. Warp 2 generic. So I guess the idea, I don't know, angels can weft walk in the same way. Some of the creatures just have warp because it like represents them like traveling like via ship or something. But I guess they didn't want them only to rely on like spacecrafts to do so, like in game, which would be kind of weird. It's really interesting that like the way this like I think this is actually like a ring, the way like it flies through like it almost like bisects this. because you could interpret it as almost like a bullet or laser flying by two, and missing, and then they still have a really interesting design where they're designed after like gas nebulas and stuff, but they are angels, so like they're really glowy. And here we have these people who are also covered in like interesting effect where like I mean obviously they're in space, that's why they're wearing they're wearing spacesuits. But one thing like artistically, sometimes you cover faces, it's like so because you're trying to display the identity of these specific people isn't as important as as the glowing angel with like giant like nebula wings. Um, so I mean that's pretty interesting and a very nice contrast between like the because it fades like purplish in a way that like in a way kind of like fate like kind of reads as almost like part of the of space, but like it's also this character is also like so bright that they clearly contrast like the rest of like the darker space. And like space is sometimes shown displays colorful in the set, so I feel like this is a lot of some of this is like an artistic choice to like help emphasize the fact that it's a stele. Because if you put this here, then also have a bunch of nebulas, glowing nebulas of the same color, then it could get muddled or lost. Um, and here we see like something like causing this Earth to rise. I'm not really sure what, but as far as this goes, flavor wise, black and white can both have the ability to res creatures from the graveyard. Although generally the difference is that black flavor wise it usually represents like black willing to use any resource to get the job done, even if that means like resurrecting like a dead person as like a zombie or something. But here with white easily represents like the idea of saving someone, like something that would otherwise be dead, you're saving it to prevent it from dying. That is true. They can't travel the speed of light. Yeah, and I guess it's close enough, right? Um, because like yeah, sure, if you're traveling from like system to system, it'd probably take a while. But obviously, if you're like within a system traveling the speed of light, it take you like a couple minutes, like 8 to 10 minutes to go from like Earth to the Sun or something. So like that does make sense. But there's also like cards like it's like a dog or something with like warp. But I assume the dog is like on a ship, so maybe that's what it is. Um, auxiliary boosters. 4 generic, 1 white. When this equipment enters, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token and attach this equipment to it. So I assume these are the boosters, and the idea is that you play the boosters and there's like a robot that comes attached to it. Equip creature gets +2, +1, +2 in flying. Equip 3, and intelligence jetpack for those who find themselves lost in space. So this isn't actually the first and only time we see. I mean, this isn't the only time we see jetpacks referenced, or at least like jetpacks with like some sort of like AI or automation with it, because I think we see like a Monoist that has like a jetpack that like flies itself. So I guess the idea is like the jetpack can like equip itself to like a robot. Interestingly here that they're both there's like purple weird like purple. I don't know if that's like Monoist or just like space dust or something on the outside. And it's interesting that they went like with gold for like the robot and then white for the jetpack. Because like as we know, as I keep saying, like I mean, I guess it is more like yellow, but gold is a shade of yellow. But like I keep saying, like white is primarily associated with like white. The color is white, and then also yellow because they don't always want to use literally white for everything. Sometimes they use like gold or yellow to represent white. So this white card having like the delineation between like these two with white and gold or white and yellow is pretty interesting. And it seems like this could maybe be mono stuff. It seems like there's maybe like a space fight happening back. Well, actually, this is just like sparks coming off this. So, um. So here we have Banishing Light. It seems like a Monoist being banished by something. When this enchantment enters, exile target non-land permanent, and opponent controls until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. Stygian demon, you are sentenced to 10 cycles of illumination. May the light scour the shadow from your soul. So this sounds kind of like the Assumus, probably a Palate specifically, like exiling like a Monoist somewhere. I'm not 100% sure where. I don't know what it means to be sentenced to 10 cycles of illumination, but they do have like really weird like religious punishments. So, but I mean, very interesting that this is like so this is like almost like very black and gray, and then it's like white and yellow for like a very strong contrast. And then here we have kind of like a more like gray. And it's interesting that we have like planets out here. I'm not gonna have a ton to say about all this art because I don't have time, and my expertise is not big enough to like to be able to nitpick every single piece of art here. But interesting they mentioned illumination. Well, clearly it's like a very bright light of some sort. Beyond Quiet. I've talked about this card before. 3 generic, 2 white. Exile all creatures in spacecraft. As a Super Void's photon color wash over them, time stop. Their souls would experience the grandeur of their demise for eternity. So, typically in a normal black hole, this would be some sort of accretion disk, but super voids, while they are singularities like black holes, they are not the exact same thing. So they get photon collars instead of accretion disk. As I think I already mentioned this in the past, like it's very interesting that like this is a white card, and they kind of try to show that that's like a white card by, because usually like the black hole is obviously like very big and like dark colored, but here they try to emphasize the fact that it's like they try to emphasize the photon disk a lot by making it gold, so they can clearly tell it's a white card. Yeah, yeah, I am. They try to make it gold to show that's like a white card here, and then here's like almost like an interesting barrier, like an edge here. So it's almost like this, like, so these people are getting sucked in with like this blue and purple like space stuff, but this ship is leaving, and it's almost like this is like leaving this world of like the black hole and the photon color into like the depths of like space. Um, and it kind of seems like they're getting stuck in like a specific place as they're falling into the black hole, or black hole, the super void. So, which isn't the first time we've heard that happen. In one of the Legends articles, they talk about someone's wife. Her wife gets like stuck, and they're like stuck in like in a specific moment in time, eternally falling towards like the black hole in like some weird instance. So I guess the idea is that they're exiled because you can't get them back. They're not like you can interpret them as them literally entering the super void, and in that manner you cannot get them back. But it could also just be kind of like stuck in a place where you cannot reach them. So that's pretty interesting. And then this is clearly like a Suma ship, and interesting that it looks like a sword because they have like a big like knight motif. They also have like a bit of like I want to say like a Roman, like they have like grand like emperor like whatever something. So they do have like some inspirations from other places like Roman like naming schemes and stuff. But it's like white and gold here, and clearly, and this orb. I keep talking about these orbs that they have in their ship. I'm tempted to say this may like symbolically represent like a simplified like sun almost. Like if you were to simplify the sun, you might describe it as like a big yellow orb. So this could symbolically represent that, but I'm not 100% sure. The idea also might be maybe that they are also stuck in time because there's like this weird aura around them. So the idea could also be that maybe the ship isn't escaping, but is also become stuck, and then these people are crashed or like dying and being sucked into the void. Here we have Bright Spear Zealot. 2 generic, 1 white, creature human soldier, vigilance. This creature gets +2/+0 as long as you've cast 2 or more spells this turn. My purpose is my spear. My sphere is my life. My life is for Regent Maximum. So Regent Maximum is, I believe, like the leader of the. Is it all subs or just the Palatinate? Hold on. The Palatinate is an opulent dynastic absolute monarchy under the command of Divine Emperor, the Regent Maximum Tamon the Fourth, which definitely feels like a war. Okay, so 40k takes a lot of inspiration from history, especially like Roman history and stuff. So it feels like both like a Roman ass name, like one of those like weird Roman emperor names, but also like a 40k, a potential 40k reference. Like this is like a name you would see in 40k, and the idea of like a divine like space sci-fi emperor, but also Dune also has like a space divine like sci-fi emperor. So, and 40k is also inspired a lot by Dune. So like, but even if this was a 40k reference by proxy, it'd also be a Dune reference, but it could also just be a Dune reference or just a reference to history in general. So it seems like not every Sumus would fall under the Palatinate, and thus not every Sumus would recognize Regent Maximum Tamon the Fourth as a as like a legitimate as like being their ruler. So vigilance here, like white gets vigilance usually because like mechanically the idea that white wants to protect things. So with vigilance you can attack, but you can also like protect your stuff even after you've attacked. This is a very interesting armor. It's like a lot more detailed than some of the other like. I think it's like the visor looks way different than some of like the other Palatinate armor we have seen. A lot of golds and whites once again, and it contrasts with like all the green of the foliage and like the brown of the dirt. And here we have this person like in action, like they're poising their spear like ready to get stabbed or sliced, and they're literally moving towards something. And it's interesting that the spear is like kind of aligned with the surface. I mean, obviously just to stab things, but it just makes me think about like the like visual language here. of like movement and stuff. And here we have like these like fabrics with like they seem to have like symbols on them. I can't really tell if they're writing or just like pictures or just lights, but um I mean you could see maybe you could see like the casting of a second spell is like um giving this character purpose, so then they strike like harder, but like it's probably just a mechanical thing, I would assume. Cosmic Grand Zenith. I think Cosmic Grand is actually like one of those leaders, not like below Regent Maximum. Cosmic Grands are near absolute monarchs, subordinate only to the Regent Maximum, each ruling at least one world. So they're kind of like a planetary governor of sorts. Except even planetary government still have to answer like the Inquisition and stuff. Cosmic Grand Zenith, 2 generic, 1 white. Creature, human, soldier. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, choose 1. Create 2 1/1 white creature, human, soldier creature tokens. Put a +1/+1 on each creature you control. Cosmic Grands of the Celestial Palatinate always seek to expand the grip on the edge. So, with that flavor text in mind, you could interpret like creating 2 white like human soldiers as like beckoning like more people to follow you, or like bringing more people under your rule, or just summoning more soldiers to help you take control of an area. And then +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So like one of the, like the philosophies of white. So the Palatinate I find very interesting philosophy wise, because like white's all about like the greater good, and the idea that you should put others before you put yourself. White's all about like peace through structure, which is the idea that we do not have everything we cannot have everything we want, but there's enough like resources in the world to have everything we need to survive, and that means sometimes you have to give stuff up and you need to put other people first before yourself. So white's about like all about like objective, like white believes like an objective morality where other colors may not. Even other colors may have a morality and the other colors may have objective morality, but white's definitely like leans with the idea that like in order to be white aligned, you kind of have to have this. You have to assume that there's some idea of objective morality. Where like a color like black may not believe in doesn't believe in like an objective morality. Like it may believe in a subjective morality, but doesn't believe morality is objective in that same way that like a white alignment might. So this is all to say that I think this represents like the +1/+1 counters, like the idea of just buffing your own troops and like helping people out. Like the reason why it gets a lot of +1/+1 counters is like the idea of buffing buffing other creatures and like trying to show that you're helping them. But also like the reason white makes a lot of tokens is the idea that like white is all about like working together and like working for the good of the group. So it's more focused on rewarding you for playing like lots of people working together as opposed to like trying to buff one super strong person. I probably should have talked about the art. Whoops. As far as the art, I mean, it's pretty simple. So you can tell this person's like the main character by virtue of the fact that they're like the only one illuminated in a lot of light. They have like gold. They're wearing a lot of gold and white, but everyone else is kind of like in shadow. There's actually not a lot going on in the background, which is kind of interesting for a Magic the Gathering card, because Magic the Gathering cards actually especially for a card game, they go weirdly hard in the backgrounds. So I don't know if this is just like a simple design choice, to like, or if it's meant to like represent like maybe like they're in literally a dark place. But and here we have like a sword, like they're bright spears or whatever, the bright blades. And here we have the soldiers are clearly like a little bulky here, so obviously it's like sci-fi like tech stuff. So like just because it's not as thick as our armor doesn't mean it's like not effective. But clearly here's like effort to make the armor look a little bulky in some areas, to show like there is a little bit of protection here, and we have kind of like the gold. Very interesting. This here draws a lot of attention to the head. The way the cape is flowing like across like behind the head, and then also like it's really bright gold around like the head area. Like it creates like almost like this kind of like angelic like old timey angelic halo effect, where like it's like a light coming from behind the head. And obviously these people back here, their faces are covered. So who they are is less important, like artistically in the environment. And then, like obviously they're like a lot duller and darker in color. We have Dawn Strike Vanguard, very bright looking card. 5 generic, 1 white. Creature, human knight, lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more top creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control other than this creature. Arrive as the dawn and banish night through your brilliance. So once again, I think we have more Palatinate. I'm not really sure what the thing. I don't know if it's an alien or a person. I assume it's an alien because they're mentioning some of the armor we see on like show of. There's like a card that's like. like Zealous Display. I mean, like kind of reminds you like that guy right there. So we do know the Palutena does have people besides humans, but they're just not as common. Um, so lifelink. The reason why usually gets lifelink is just the idea that it's like it wants to heal, so it helps you. At the beginning of your end step, if you but black usually gets lifelink because the idea is that it's like draining your energy, but white usually gets it because like the idea is like the idea is it's trying to heal you. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more type creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control other than this creature. So this again is just representative of like white wants to help. So if some creatures exert themselves, this creature tries to like basically help like give them like a little boost. Like it rewards them by giving them +1/+1 counters. Arrive as the dawn and banish night through your brilliance. So once again, like I say, white is just very connected to light symbolically in Magic the Gathering a lot. So here we have this idea of like truth, like both like a moral truth, but also like revealing the truth so people can out. Because like part of the problem with lies, a lot of this with lies sometimes with white philosophy is the idea that someone can lie and say pretend they're doing the right thing even though they're doing something selfish or terrible. So sometimes white has like this idea of like truth, and this idea that like people being honest or like revealing like some sort of truth or maybe some moral truth. The art here is very simple. This guy feels like the main character by virtue we can clearly see their face. Like this person has a face, but it's kind of hard to make it out because it's covered in shadow mostly. When this person's face is almost completely covered in light, and everyone else is like wearing like a helmet or is like really far behind. And there's clearly like a formation here. And once again, I talk about how sometimes height is used to represent power or influence. And here you can kind of see, even though these people are clearly taller, like they're clearly in the foreground. This person looks like they're not standing straight up for one, but also like this person's like positioned in such a way that it gives the illusion that they're above these people, like behind them. Like these people are answering to this person right here. And then you have the bright ass, the bright ass axe, whatever. And then rays of light shining down to like represent like power. And I think these actually represent the 2 tap creatures. Like the idea is that these people are kind of like down and getting up. It's like this is like rallying them. Like, oh, you're tired, but here's some +1/+1 counters. Get in there and fight again. You know. So very interesting. And this looks like a cape. It's kind of hard to tell. I can't tell if it's like a cape or just like a weird light effect. But it's kind of like flowing like a cape, like a translucent cape. And there's just like a little bit of a glow going behind here. So I guess the idea is like this is like raining down like power onto them. Dock Worker Drone. This seems like more like I can't really tell if this is Sumas. I don't think it's a Sumas. It doesn't really. Well, could be Sumas. These ships look like Sumas ships. Dock Worker Drone. 1 generic, 1 white. Artifact creature, robot. This creature enters with a +1/+1 counter on it. When this creature dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Eternity columns are the trade hubs of every solar system. Yeah, so I think it's a Pinnacle pot. But anyway, I mean, it's kind of not a ton to say. It looks like it's scrubbing something, or maybe just moving. It's kind of hard to tell. It almost looks like a vehicle almost, but obviously it's a white robot, so they want to let you know that it's white aligned, and it's like it's like a very sterile place. And this thing doesn't make the main focus because it's literally the biggest and just most in focus. And it's almost kind of hard to get a read about like how big this thing is supposed to be because it might be a bit big, but like how far away are we from these things? Like how big is the station itself? Because those people are kind of far away. Like usually they put a percent closer so you have a frame of reference. But I assume it's kind of big. I assume it's not like a small robot. It's like kind of big. It's like these are like people, so they're kind of far away. You'd assume like they wouldn't be like towering over this thing if they got closer. They'd be like, I don't know, like there's a guy standing here. He'd be like here or something. So Eternity columns are they're basically Pinnacle owned like transit hubs. So not every ship can just enter the weft on its own. So what most ships have to do is they have to go to these Eternity columns and then dock the ships onto a ferry so that the ferry can carry them through the weft to where they want to go. The +1/+1 counter is just like the idea is that it has things. So when this creature dies, like it's helping something out. Like sometimes you see white care a bit about sacrifice, even if it doesn't sacrifice creatures that often. Like the idea is that like white's all about putting others first. Like sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice yourself for like a greater good. So the idea is that like this creature, if it dies, it can still be used for like a greater good and puts a +1/+1 counter to something else to make that thing stronger or to help it. It's a robot. I'm still curious about what the exact definition between a robot and a construct is. I guess a robot would just be powered by like electricity, probably mostly, and then a construct would be like animated, just animated metal and shit, I assume, but I'm not 100% sure about that, if that's like the right reading. Also, just very interesting how its own shadow creates like a kind of like a contrast. Like this, there's like this black ground, and it's like this white robot, like this pathway here. But dual sun adepts. So the name seems to have a double meaning, because not only is there two of them, but also they each have two blades. So you could read the dual sun as there's two of them, dual sun as in they each wield two blades, or dual sun as both. Dual sun adepts. 2 generic, 1 white. Creature, human, soldier. Double strike. So this is represented by the fact that they hold like 2 weapons, so they strike twice. Creatures you control get +1/+1 till the end of turn. You fight beside me as brilliantly as the dawn. I have nothing more to teach you. Master Eternities. So it kind of seems like this might be like a Sunstar Knight Squire pair maybe of some sort, because we know that Sunstar Knights are meant to like a mentor Squire sometimes. I assume this is the knight because they have the fancy cape. Because they're the fancy white golden like cape. But we do, I mean, not that we don't see other characters that like aren't knights that have like the fancy capes, but I assume the idea is that here that this person is more decorated than this person who does not in the same picture. Obviously like a lot of white and gold, but this seems more towards like an orange tint. It's not orange, I would say per se, but interesting that like leans towards like more of a warm orange tint, and then it contrasts like this this looks like a monolith structure of some sort, but I'm not really sure what they're fighting as monoliths per se, because this is like really weird alien tentacle stuff. The monoliths do have like a nautilus, so I don't know, but so very interesting contrast between like yellowish orange and like a white, and then like a mostly dark black, purple, blue, and then like purple. And like I said before, purple and yellow are actually complementary colors, and the fact they sit opposite from each other on the color wheel. So if you look at a basic color wheel like this, sometimes the placement is like a little bit different because it depends on like how many colors you're including. Like sometimes they're like really detailed, but here we have purple and yellow. It's like the idea that the complementary colors, and you can see this in like a lot of designs just in general. Like Wario is mostly yellow with purple, and then Waluigi is mostly purple with yellow. So like the idea is that part of the reason they work so well is because they're complementary, and then Luigi and Mario are like complementary colors also. So in this case, a lot of times, obviously, complementary colors are called that because they usually go well together and they create like a nice little effect. But here, complementary colors could be representing like a bit of like a clash of some sort. Obviously, pay 5. If you have enough power, you can just buff creatures you control. So just cares about. So part of the reason that like white also gets so many anthems, another part of the reason besides just like the idea of like wanting to convey the idea of wanting to help others, is the idea that like it rewards you for having more creatures. So like colors like green or black might just put like more +1/+1 kind of on a single creature, but here it's like, hey, if you want to make full advantage of this, you want as many creatures as possible. You want to go wide. You want to care about like group effort more than you want to care about like an individual creature going wild most of the time. You have dual sun technique. Dual sun technique. Target creature you control gains double strike until end of turn. If it has a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. Haste begets blunder. Be patient, Aura. As the sun rises, you will yet earn your second blade. Seems like a Master. So we have Master Eternities. This actually might be the same person as we saw on the last card. Hold on. Because that's also Master Eternities. So it kind of seems like it seems like the dual blades are like a specific technique, and it seems like Master Eternities, who is this person, I think, is teaching their squire how to use that technique. So here we have so obviously double strike, because you're learning like it's literally the dual sun technique. So you learn how to use 2 blades, so you get double strike, and if it has a +1/+1 counter on it, you draw a card. Obviously white usually cares about +1/+1 counters and wants to help things and make things more powerful, like other things. But also it could just be like there's like a +1/+1 counters matters thing going on in the set. So it could be as simple as like, hey, if you've already learned something, because there's a very interesting combo with this card where if you use a dual sun technique once, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then so that way if you use it again, you draw a card. So it's like, hey, you've already learned something, so you get even more knowledge. And this card's very interesting because like, you have like a scroll behind their head which like helps emphasize them, right? It's like this bright yellow swirl, which contrasts with their skin tone, like their hair. So it's like this bright yellow swirl with like a bit of purple going on here. But here it's like almost like you have like these cosmic events, and the implication is not that this person is causing them, but like artistically it reads as like the idea is that you want to read this technique is powerful. So it's almost like these techniques are almost like causing or connected to somehow with these like with this explosion and like these like waves coming out here. Not that you're literally causing it, but it's just like a nice little metaphor. Like you want to convey like these are powerful, and this person, and you have this person in the center, like kind of like balancing them. And this is like a really weird plan. I don't know. It's like really iridescent, like oil iridescent, and then it's all leaning towards one way, which creates like a bit of like action almost. A bit more of a dynamic feel. Like it's all leaning this way. So that's interesting. And just these blades kind of like run parallel to each other despite like the positions. Like if you were like to extend these blades like as lines, they would be running parallel. To represent like a sort of balance, despite the fact that like one's flipped upside down. I think this might be like a well, I guess they're not symmetrical because these blades are clearly different design, but because like these blades seem like the same design here, but these blades look like different designs. So here we have emergency eject. Emergency eject, 2 generic, 1 white. Instant, destroy target non-land permanent. Its control creates a lander token. It's an artifact, yeah. So lander token, you can sacrifice it to search library for basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. This is your captain speaking. Our eternity drive has ruptured. Might be with you all. So once again, it seems like more palatinate. So we get an explanation of what's happening in this scene. Although this is the first time I've heard about. I've really thought about the eternity drive rupturing because we know there's like a lot of stuff that can go wrong in web travel, but the eternity drive rupturing seems like pretty bad. It's like imagine going faster than light basically, and then your engine like explodes. So white does sometimes destroy stuff, but usually the difference between white destruction and like black destruction, for example, is the idea that white is either conditional, so like it's punishing you for breaking some sort of rule or like for trying to hurt others, or it's like gives you something equal in return, so it's like a trade-off where it's like, yeah, I'll destroy your thing, but I'll give you something in return. So I guess the idea here is that when you emergency eject, you're whatever something is being destroyed by like the whatever's going wrong, and then the lander token comes from the fact that your pod or whatever is landing somewhere else, and then the controller's pod or whatever has a chance to eject and land somewhere else, and then they find like another land that way. And here we have this bright white light just cutting through this thing. And the ship is like kind of like a Doloco, which is interesting. And then we have these like bring focus because they're just in front. They're very close to the camera, and this is like flying away. It's clear. To me, it feels clear that when you first look at this, your attention usually comes to this, and then you're like, what? Then you see what's behind it. And the background's kind of weird. Well, I assume that's supposed to be like the weft, maybe, or maybe leaving the weft. Kind of to tell. Could just be like a weird. Could just be like a Sothera super void back there, or maybe some weird like nebula or some sort. Exalted Sunborn. So this is a very weird way to depict the angels, because usually they're like more nebula, and this is kind of like a nebula, but it's also kind of like more abstract. Like it's almost like a painting, or like I mean, it is obviously a painting, literally, but I mean, where others are rendered more like realistic nebulas, like humanoid nebulas. This looks more almost like a painting of sorts, like the gold hair and like they have clear face, etc., etc. Especially this looks like very abstract and very simplified. Keep stuttering. This looks very abstract and very simplified. Creature, angel, wizard, flying lifelink. If you or what more tokens would be created under your control, create twice that many of those tokens twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Warp 1. You may cast this card from your hand for its warp cost. Exile this creature at the beginning of your next step. Then you may cast it for exile later turn. I don't know why I read all that. Like people don't know what warp does. Obviously, as pointed out by Silas Jones, the warp on the angels could represent them moving faster than light. They can probably move very fast, and they can also quantum computate too. So it makes sense. We'll see if every angel has. I guess they don't all have warp. Just all of them except one have warp though. which is pretty interesting. So I guess maybe in the case of the angel, it does represent faster than light speed because it's a pretty consistent warp. I can't really think of a flavor reason as to why I create twice as many tokens. I think the idea is just the white card that and white cares about making tokens because white wants to go wide, so it could represent rallying more people to a cause or something. Very interesting color choice here because it's like a lot of gold. There's like gold here, which makes sense for a white card, and like a bit of white here, but it's like a lot of it's like a bit of every color here. It's like at least not like literally every color, but like the color pie, like Magic the Gathering color pie. Like there's green, purple, red, blue, gold. Like honestly, if you told me this is a Woodbury card, I wouldn't be completely surprised. That's just interesting. But it's clearly still like the star effect going on here. Like there's clearly like a nebula under there. And like almost like cosmic waves or something, and like the planet in the background. And this is like a very weird. I'm not really sure what that is, but there's still like stuff back there. Exosuit Survivor, Exosuit Savior. How do I say it? Exosuit Savior. 2 generic, 1 white. Creature, human, soldier. Flying. When this creature enters, return up to 1 target non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. And Asteli once saved me just like this. I aspire to live up to their example every day. So an Asteli is like the angels on the plane. That's what they're called in this plane. They're called Asteli. I assume Asteli sounds kind of like Stella, so I assume like the idea is that they're like it's their connection to the stars. The Asteli specifically are created whenever a star collapses into a super void. I think either a super void or a black hole. That's when an Asteli is created, like the remnants of the star. Like sentient remnants. The remains of stars consumed by super voids. Yeah. So what they're saying is an angel basically saved them just like that one time. Once again, very interesting that both faces are covered here, probably just because they're in space this time. And very interesting that this person does not seem like they do not give the vibe of like another Palatinate. They don't they don't really look like Monos either. Like Monos a little bit more rounded. Like they do have like some round parts, but I feel like they don't quite look like Monos either. Especially since we see Monos blowing up behind them. I think like like something exploding behind them. So so obviously it's flying because it's literally like they're wearing an exosuit. And then when it enters, return up to 1 other target permanent you control to its owner's hand. So white sometimes has the ability to bounce its own stuff. I don't think white usually gets the ability to bounce other people's stuff. Usually it bounces its own stuff, and the idea being that like it's using it to like save like things it controls. Like basically something gets targeted by something or is hurt or has like negative like -1/-1 counters on it. You can bounce it and then remove that effect or target from it, and then play it later. So you can save it and then play it later. Obviously, it's very interesting. Like it's almost like so the way everything's drawn, it conveys like a lot of speed. Like yes, there's a swoop, but like the way the explosions are clearly coming like towards us, so it kind of just conveys like just how fast this person is coming. And even this is like conveyed like to like give like a sense of like almost like I guess like a thin strip, like you're racing through like a valley, like there's an explosion on either side, and this person's coming down like racing as fast as they can back up. And you see a bit of purple, the Monos, and black, but clearly it's like being like kind of overwhelmed by whatever this explosion effect is. Flight Deck Coordinator. Flight Deck Coordinator, 2 generic, 1 white. Creature, human, soldier. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, you gain 2 life. The hidden might of the Sunstar Free Company is its technical staff. So here we see someone who's, I guess, not a soldier, we can assume. Or if they are a soldier, they're also this. And here we can see literally the ships that they're directing to fly. Like we see this, I think it's like the back of a ship here. And this is like circular, like it's almost like a target in a way. It's kind of funny. Like, it's kind of like circular, so you could read it almost like a target. Like that's what they're aiming for. I mean, that's nothing to say about here. It's like they have they want to let you know it's a white card, so like a lot of bit of yellow and white, and this person's like wearing a lot of white and gold, and they're pointing. You can tell they're directing the ships because they're pointing this in the exact same direction as the ships. Like they're beckoning one ship here, and this ship is like literally parallel to like their arm. So at the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, you gain 2 life. I don't really 100% understand. I think it's mostly just like mechanical. I think there's a bit of flavor here, but I think it's mostly mechanical because you think I'd care about like spacecraft or something, but I think the idea is that like it's helping direct people. So if it's tapped, it's helping direct them, and you get 2 life. Focus Fire. So I think I already talked about this art before, but obviously you have the gold and white and yellow, the Palatinate, and they're attacking like some sort of monoist thing. Once again, you have the purple like in gold contrast, and the monos also have like his orb shapes. I assume the idea is because like a lot of the super voids and even like black hole like imagery tends to be like kind of smoothed out because like everything being pulled into like a single like sphere / point. Um, so there's that, and this looks almost like an eye, even though it's not literally one. And there's almost like this ring around it. So once again, you could interpret this as like, almost like the reach of like, because like in here it's like all purple. It's more like a violet purple, and then here it's like darker like blue. So you could interpret this almost like the reach, like its influence. Like it's like this massive object that has like all this reach and influence. Like this is like all its domain, and they're flying from like maybe a quote for them is like a more safe area into it to go fight it off. Like, but they're working together to do it. Focus Fire deals X damage to target attacking or blocking creature, where X is 2 plus the number of creatures or indoor spacecrafts you control. We are the arrows of Sun Solde's quiver. Do we know what Sun Solde is? Is that a person? Should I know what that is? Anyway. The Declaration of Fleet Purpose, Axiom 2. So do we have Axiom? Something for the Axiom? The Bright Summons Doctrine embodied an axiomatic behavior and comport. It is the figure that remains at the end of the Celestial Palatinate's faith, tabulating and calculation of the data of the universe. Anyway. Also, clearly, like, emphasizing like, the direction everything's moving in with, like, these little trails. So they're, like, moving in to shoot something. And the idea is, like, White's always been able to do this for a while. Actually, I don't think everyone knows that, but White's been able to do this for a really long time. Is it can deal damage to like attacking or blocking creatures. Like the idea is that White can destroy attacking or blocking creatures, so it can also deal damage to attacking or blocking creatures as like a way of self defense, basically, or punishing someone for doing something that they're not supposed to. So like if you attack me, I attack in self defense. If you block something I'm swinging with, I kill it in self defense because you could hurt the creature I'm swinging with, or to punish you for doing something I don't want you to do, like you're breaking like a rule I have. I'm probably not gonna talk about Hylia and those like main cards because I've already talked about them enough. I've been reading the story, so if you're interested in knowing about these cards, I already talked about them enough. So I'm probably not gonna cover the art really. Whenever Hylia or another creature or artifact control enters, you gain 1 life. So this is what Hylia wanting to help people and protect people. So she rewards you for paying people. I think Hylia even herself says she needs someone to protect. Basically, when she's interacting with Aphrael and asks them like to stay alive, so she has something to protect. So this idea that Hylia like rewards you for giving her something or someone to protect, and at the beginning of your end step, draw a card if you gain 3 or more life this turn. And if you play enough people or give her enough people to protect, you get to draw a card. And warp. I don't know because she's on a ship sometimes and it warps around. It's one of those cards was like I think the idea is that like she's been on a ship that can like warp around, or in a situation where she has access to like the weft travel. Hardlight Containment. So very interesting, very stylized, obviously. Interesting how symmetrical, like this is very symmetrical, like a very like sense of order and balance. And I don't really know what this is. Kind of looks like a monoist. You could read it as an Eldrazi, but I think it's a monoist because like the weird orb thing here, like the way like it like this curves. So I think this is probably a monoist. But could be. Well, I'm just gonna read it. Hardlight Containment, white. Enchantment Aura. Enchant artifact you control. When this aura enters, exile target creature and opponent controls until this aura leaves the battlefield. Enchantment to permanent as ward 1. I keep forgetting. I have forgotten sleep in their prison. Corilla prison escapee. So I assume this is a monoist and not like not an Eldrazi. So very interesting. Like once again, just like a lot of yellow and then like black for contrast. A lot of white and yellow just so you know it's a white card, and then here we have these people like covered in like really, really dark black. It's a very striking image. And here obviously the flavor is the idea that you are basically putting in containment and you're having one of your creatures guard it. So once whatever's guarding it dies or leaves the battlefield, then your opponent can get it back because it can just escape now. Honor. So this card is very interesting because there's like this bright ass sun back here, which helps draw attention. Like they're like the top of their bodies is like inside, like is encompassed by this bright light, which helps you draw attention here. And here's like this more abstract background, and here's like their capes. Cape. A lot of this is like obviously very stylized. Like here we have this cape, and we do know. I think we see Holly like implying that you can like maybe display images on the cape. I'm not 100% sure, but here we have this cape, and once again, it's like very weird armor because it seems like Palatinate stuff, but not most Palatinate armor doesn't look like that. But I can imagine there's probably like Palatinate armor. It's a big universe. Palatinate armor might look like this in some places, or there might be people with armor like this. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Draw a card. With this mantle, you carry the duty to spread light, liberty, and the grace of Tamon the Four to the stars. So I assume this is someone being knighted or something similar. It's a bit hard to tell. It's just called honor, so it could literally just be like someone getting a promotion or something, like a squire or a soldier or something. Tamon the Fourth is at the region maximum at the moment. Maximum. So at the moment, Regent Maximum Tamon the Fourth. So yeah, it's the maximum. It's a Regent Maximum. And again, why just cares about +1/+1 counts? Because the idea is that you're just helping one of your creatures here. You can put a +1/+1 counter to help it, and then you draw a card. So Honored Knight Captain. So this art's already got kind of interesting because even like this person's kind of like they're not like super realistic, but kind of drawn more realistically, and then you have like this super stylized like symbol behind them. It's clearly like just like two-dimensional in nature, and then once again it resembles kind of like a star, like a stylized star. So and you have white connections like the sun and light once again, and especially if the Palatine loves like their sun imagery. And very interesting. This is also like a cape too, like kind of like this is a star, but also kind of like you also read it as kind of like winding around this person, like connecting to their shoulders somewhere, like a cape. And this person's clearly the main character because they're like completely like they're more detailed, and then this person's just like a basically like a almost like a cave drawing, almost like they're monochrome, they're like don't have as much shading, etc., etc. And I think this might take place on. It's kind of hard to tell because this could be just be an abstract drawing, but this might take place on Adagia, the planet the Palatine seem to have like a major hold on, and Adagia is like seems to be heavily connected to white mana. And then he has like these weird like has like these weird like mirror things up in the sky. Like if you look at Indigia here, like you could see this as like a stylized, like as being stylized into this. So this creature enters, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. 4 generic, 2 white. Sacrifice this creature. Search your library for an equipment card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. Hope can never fade as long as there's a hand to carry my sword when I fall. So the flavor text is probably referring to like this ability where if you sacrifice this person. So once again, I pointed that white has like a strong connection to like sacrificing as a mechanic because the idea is like sacrificing yourself for a greater cause. So the idea here is that like this person can sacrifice themselves to basically pass on their legacy, which is like whatever equipment. And they created 1/1 human soldier token because I guess that's their apprentice, whoever that's supposed to be. So hope can never fade as so long as there's a hand to carry my sword when I fall. So also 1/1. Once again, it's kind of like a funny joke. It's like, oh, you're telling me like a pig beats like a well-trained soldier, and that's true. But also like the point, part of the reason that sometimes toughness and power and toughness can also be very symbolic in Magic, and the idea is that usually white has lower power and toughness than like other colors. Is the idea is white wants to force you to rely more on the group and like using like working together with others, like other creatures to get the job done, as opposed to like focusing on the individual. And also like we gotta remember this creature wants to sacrifice itself, so this could also represent like this creature being like willing to die or knowing it will pass in some way. So Night Luminary. I think I've already talked about this art because they use it in one of the short stories, but the generic 1 white creature human knight. When this creature enters, create a 1/1 white human soldier token. Warp one generic 1 white. I thank you that I do not shine alone. So once again, they're using like a bit of height as like a representation of power. It's hard to say if this person's standing on something, or if they're standing on something, or if they're literally taller. But the idea is that like this person is literally above these people, right? Like this person, like everyone's like below them. They're either kneeling or this person's standing on something or something, and they're literally above them in terms of like the hierarchy and like social status. But even then, they still appreciate them according to the flavor text. And if you look at like the art, it's like this like really bright, like weird, like light thing behind their head, where it's almost like as you get closer to them, as you get closer to them, the brighter this person shines, like metaphorically. Like they are the main focus, even though there's like all these people here helping like set them up. And once again, a lot of white and gold like imagery. And it's very interesting that like they look up the most. Like this person's looking up, but looking up at them. This person's like looking up and then looking directly at the camera, which gives like an air of confidence. This person you can't see their face. This person's like looking straight on. This person's literally looking down. So that's kind of interesting. When this creature enters, create a 1/1 white human. So obviously since they're surrounded by like a bunch of people, the idea here is that like they have people with them, like whoever's equipping their armor, their apprentice, or whatever. They bring that with them to the battlefield, and like it even reflects in their flavor text. Like they don't shine alone; they have people helping them out. So here we have like the one angel that doesn't have warp. Lightslaw Inquisitor, 1 white, very small for an angel because the angels are usually like 4 or 5 mana, but creature, Angel Wizard, Vigilance. When this creature enters, each opponent exiles a card from their hand and may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Each spell cast this way costs 1 more to cast. Each land played this way enters tap. Born of Dead Stars, they slave may fight for light, but they know the void is their womb. Almost sounds like a if a mono said that, it would sound like something a mono would say. But I don't think this is like a specific character saying anything. Once again, that it's very interesting that this one's wearing like the other ones we've seen wearing armor, but this one's like wearing like more like fabrics. Because usually the angels we see are wearing Palatinate armor because most angels are aligned with the Palatinate, and we have this person like sucking some sort of energy, like stalling them, like they're sucking like energy out of them into this point. It's very interesting. This is basically like a white's version of like discard. It's a very interesting take on like what could potentially be discard in white, like the idea that where black can just make people discard stuff or exile cards from people's hands. White can like, oh, I can take something away from your hand, but you can get it back as long as you as long as you play nice. You can get it back, and obviously like it costs more to cast, but also like your lands enter tap, so like it slows you down. But like yeah, as long as you go to the proper rules and whatever, you'll get whatever you want back. But which is kind of like the same vibe as like when white exiles something, where it's like, well, if you destroy the enchantment, you get whatever you want back. But until then, it's basically like put away. It's basically like confiscated. Very interesting because these don't look like Palatinate glows, but obviously like they're flowing. They help draw your attention here, but also get like a sense of like power. And it's very interesting that even like the world behind this person, it's like I don't know if this guy's like at the center of a crater or like if the world's just kind of like crumbling like around them or whatever, or these like weird structures, but it almost gives like a sense of like some sort of power and like or it's like sitting in some sort of like bullish shape. And also once again, going back to what I said about height being used as a nice like metaphor for power, is like the exact height of that these two are. Like his angel could be shorter than this guy, like if they both stood like side by side, but that doesn't really matter because like the point is that this person's on the ground, they're in a position of helplessness of like not being in control, and this angel is like standing up, and they're in position of control. They have balance, they have stability, they literally loom over this person. Interesting also Inquisitor. Inquisitor's kind of like I'm just gonna look it up because sometimes I can tell you what I think it is, but I just want to make sure I'm getting it 100 right. Inquisitor's kind of like a detective. Like they kind of look for like heresy and stuff. So probably implies a connection to like the Sumist. Like they like help search for like Inquisitor, a person making a query, especially to be harsher. Blah, blah, blah. A person makes an inquisition, a questioner. So. Not what I was looking for. One searches out to inquire. So I guess the idea is that like also a bit of the flavor here is that since they're an inquisitor, they're looking for answers for something, so they can check the opponent's like mind or whatever, or grill the opponent and then grab an answer out, see what they're like. Because when someone so like basically the opponent's forced to give an answer like, hey, what do you got in there? And like, okay, here's something I have. I'll exile like a land, and then you can see that that's the information they have. I'm probably gonna stop after I do all the white cards. So I think I probably just have to do one color each day, and then I don't know when we get to the lands or get to the bonus art. We'll just take it. We'll just do it as we go. Um, Lumen class frigate. One generic, one white. Station. Tap on the creature you control. Put a charge counter equal to its power on the spacecraft. Station only is a sorcery. It's an artifact creature at 12 plus. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. So once again, we have this idea of like reinforcing creatures, but also rewarding you for having as many creatures as possible. Because if you want this buff to be at strongest, you want to have as many creatures on the field as you can get. And here we have the Lumincrest frigate. Very interesting that like there's like little bits like not like floating around, but it's also sci-fi trope. And here we have like all these like ships flying around. Obviously, once you get enough people, you can like basically get it operational, get it flying. This looks like a Dagia because seems like it has like just like little. I assume those are kinds of mirrors, some kind of mirror. Because the Dagia seems like have a big mirror theme. Like it has natural mirrors, yeah, but also has like artificial mirrors. So these could be some sort of like mirror structure. Once again, we see like the gold orb and like white and gold, and these kind of like resemble stars almost, like black and white the stars, but clearly we're like planet side, and like and we have this idea of like this thing. Once again, we have like a little bit of like maybe like a bit of power display. Not like usually it's between two characters like in the frame, but here we're like the ones on the ground. We're looking up at this massive ship flying overhead. Like if you see like we're clearly like at like ground level, and we're looking up at this massive thing. As also it's also meant to help, I think, give us the scale, just how big this thing is. Because it is a frigate, so. Lux Knight Breacher. I've already talked about this card a lot, so I'm probably not gonna get too into it. But Lux Knight Breacher, 3 generic, 1 white creature, human knight. This creature enters with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other creature and/or artifact control. So obviously, it rewards you like the more creatures you have and the more artifacts you have to protect, the stronger it is when it comes in. It's one of White's ways of encouraging you to go wide and like focus on like the group instead of like individual creatures. Because even though this individually comes in powerful, so it's only at its most powerful when you have a bunch of other creatures. There's a very interesting like bit of like scene, like playing around with the scene here where it's like this is like all black and like a purple like blast shots coming in here, and you can tell like they're intruding in from like a different like area because it's like all white, and they're white and gold, and they were stepping into like this more like dark like purple and black kind of area, and clearly they cut it open here because it's like molten metal here. And it's interesting to have all the faces covered. Like these like this person's clearly like more like on the main character because these people are like farther behind. But interesting that all the faces are covered. Like almost like who's wearing it is probably less important. But again, they could just be in a situation where it's like they're in space or something. And obviously they're fighting, so like why would you not wear the helmet? Only when a vessel is emptied of shallow ego may the depths of light flow in to fill it. Seraphis, check, Sunstar Poet. So it's kind of representing the fact that like this person's stepping in from like clearly a way brighter like scenery into like a darker one. So like they're stepping into like a different vessel, and then the light is literally flowing to fill it, and there's also like this bright ass cape and stuff. Pinnacle Star Cage. So this seems to be based on the idea of like a Dyson sphere, which is like the idea of like you build like basically a superstructure like around a star to harvest solar energy. Pinnacle Star Cage, 1 generic, 2 white. Also, it's very impressive because like a Dyson sphere, like realistic. Obviously, we don't live in a time where a Dyson sphere would be anywhere near like feasible because you need probably way more. You would absolutely need more resources than you have on Earth. Maybe you could make like a Dyson like. Maybe at some point you'd be like a Dyson like satellite system or something, but like building a Dyson sphere like this would be like mad. So it shows kind of how advanced like the Pinnacle technology and other technology in space is. And here's like a ship almost like for scale to show how big this thing is. Although it's still a bit hard to tell because I guess it depends on how close you interpret that thing up being. When this artifact enters, exile all artifacts and creatures with mana value 2 or less until this artifact leaves the battlefield. Put each card exile with this artifact into its owner's graveyard. Then create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token for each card put into a graveyard this way. Sacrifice this artifact. So I guess the idea is that's containing like something like below a certain size, so something with mana value 2 or less. Despite how big this thing seems, and this is like a ship, so it's kind of weird. But a lot of whites and golds, and obviously stars, because like white cards love that kind of imagery. And it's like this interesting like kind of like swirl like cosmic dust around it to help create like a to help draw your eye to it a bit more. And then obviously you can get rid of all the stuff. You can get rid of all the stuff from the star cage, and as a trade-off, you get like robots, which I guess are there to protect whatever's in the star cage or help dispose of whatever's in the star cage. Um, Pulsar Squadron Ace. Creature human pilot, one generic, one white. When this creature enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a spacecraft card from among them and put the rest into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. If you didn't put a card in your hand this way, put a +1/+1 card on this creature. So I guess the idea is that you play it and then this creature finds a ship for you, and if you don't, you just buff the creature. So you don't feel as bad. Very simple art. It's like you have this person standing here with white and gold, and their face like literally brightened by whatever they're doing. And it seems like they're casting something on the ship or doing something to the ship, and everything else is like you can see like maybe what the ship might look like based on what all the models in the background, and obviously people are like more out of focus here. So this person's like the main character here. Interesting that way. Also the way tunnel, it's like almost like everything's like pointing towards this person. Like it's like all getting smaller, and then all these like little grates or whatever are pointing this way. So, and even this is like pointing towards that person. So it's like almost everything's like almost like designed to point towards this person. And then of course once you get past them, it's like not as true. But Radiant Strike. Radiant Strike, 3 generic, 1 white. Instant. Destroy target artifact or tap creature. You gain 3 life. The light does not ask permission to cut through the darkness. Mentor Ultimate to Regent Maximum time on the 4th. So Mentor Ultimate seems like they're probably like a big deal, because the Tamon is the current Regent Maximum. So here we have Radiant Strike. Here we have Halia. I think I'm pretty sure it's Halia. Cutting like someone or something down. Destroying target artifact or tap creature could represent either destroying like being willing to kill a monolith, or her mission to destroy the I forget what the rock the void stone. So because that was like her original mission in the story. I think I already talked about this. Like there's like a almost like David and Goliath vibe here, where like they're showing like how big and massive what like this monolith person is, but like Halia's like still manages to take it down. Like there's a cut through here. And also helps draw like a bit of contrast between her, like it's like a way darker figure, and then she's like wearing all these like gold and gold and silver and gray. Also this bright ass sphere. Also you gain life because white's all about life gain and the idea of helping you. So Rayblade Trooper, 2 generic, 1 white. Creature, human soldier. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever a non-token creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, create a 1/1 white human creature token. So the idea, of course, is that when this creature enters, put a +1, like it's coming to help somebody. But when a non-creature token with a +1/+1 creature dies, you like a new one comes to take its place. You could also maybe see it as like maybe the person in the card helping them or something, or helping them keep fighting. I'm not 100% sure, but I kind of read it as like it's coming to like avenge, basically, like there's people coming to avenge whoever falls in battle. And here we see it helping someone who's wounded, so we do have that vibe of like it wants to help wounded people, and also like if something dies, it probably does seem like a person who would want to avenge them. And once again, we have like this effect of like this is the only person not wearing like a helmet. Everyone else is wearing a helmet, so it's like the most important person here. And we have like all these purple like mono shots. This looks kind of like a Monos area. I don't know. It might not be, but this gives me like Monos vibes of a Monos area. There's like a lot of dust instead of like cloud and smoke or whatever. So like there's like interesting. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else. Also interesting how like this cape is kind of like for like around this person, almost like they're like not only is their arm around this person to help them, but like almost like this cape is like almost like a gesture of like protection, like going around this person to like try to like shield them and protect them. And these shots, like considering the angles these shots are coming from, this person this person is putting themselves in front of this other person, and they also took a shot to the face. Holy shit! But this person is positioning themselves in front of this other person. That's all I have to really say. But reroute systems. 1 white, instant. Choose one. Target creature, artifact, or creature can indestructible until the end of turn. Reroute systems deals 2 damage to target tapped creature. So I guess the flavor here is that either you're rerouting systems to your shields, because there's literally a shield in this art. So you're either rerouting it to shields, to shield to protect something, or you're rerouting to weapons to shoot something. This art's pretty simple. It shows both like the ship getting destroyed. The only thing you might like point out is that like it kind of weird the ship is being both shielded and destroying something when you only have one or the other. But like I don't know, like unless you have like 2 pieces of art, like it just makes sense. I guess it's like, hey, you can either shield yourself or you can shoot something. And we have like these mono ships flying around, and there's a golden shield effect, with a clearly like Palatinate ship flying through. Oh yeah, one thing you see a lot, especially with cards that aren't creature, cards. Usually, there's like they want to emphasize the action, so that they're less like like include like a specific character to like imprint onto or identify as the main character. Or if there is, they usually just do something to like make the character like look like something that's important and make the action they're performing look more important. So, rescue skiff. This is kind of funny because the other card you probably could also interpret as like a vehicle if you didn't know any better. And this card you could also interpret as like based on something like magic language. You go like, oh, maybe this card's called like rescue, blah blah blah. But this is a vehicle, obviously, because it's just a vehicle. And then this person, like what, like I said, what I said about like the difference between creature cards and non-creature cards is like the person is so small and like out of focus that who they are specifically doesn't really matter. It's more about like, the skiff itself and what it's doing and the action itself. Because it is a rescue skiff. It's a generic 5, 1 white artifact spacecraft. When the spacecraft enters, return target creature and enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So the idea is basically that it's just saving someone or something. Why does it save enchantments in particular? I don't really know, but it says the creatures is pretty like on the nose, like it's saving someone and maybe like preserving some sort of enchantment or some sort. It's a 5/6 flyer. Yeah, and also it's of course it's a spaceship. It's literally flying. So again, it's flying when you get enough people to crew it. Scout for survivors. So once again, like I said, notice how all their faces are covered, and once again, like there's kind of like in a way, it's kind of like trying to emphasize the action more than like the actual people. Like so, they go through the effort of covering this person's face, even though I understand logically in universe the reason why they'd be doing that is because it's cold, but like artistic, sometimes there's like a Thermian argument in which there's like the I think there's another name for it. It's like a Sherlock, like a Holmesian point, and then also like the who wrote Sherlock Holmes, like the Sir Arthur Conan. So there's like a Doyleist perspective and then like a Sherlockian's perspective. I forget what the specific terminology is, but the idea is basically like if you're doing a Doyleist perspective, you're approaching it from the idea of like a writer or the creator or the making person making the story or the art, and if you're doing like a one second. Reconnection successful. What was that? Looks like it was working fine. Anyway, I don't know what that was about, but hopefully nothing's wrong with our Twitch viewers. But so the universe perspective, the universe explanation is obviously they're in a cold ass place and they need all the protection they can get. And that universe explanation is, I think, is like maybe a bit of like artistic, like conscious or unconscious, like trying to emphasize like the action they're doing. So like this person making a very clear action with their body, like they're searching for something and their face is covered. So it's like so it's almost like the person who's doing the searching isn't as important as opposed to as the action they are doing. And you have these people in the background like throwing like stuff up for this person to catch. Like there's some sort of crashed ship, probably a Palatinate ship it looks like, and they're trying to like gather like they're looking for survivors, obviously. Which up to 3 target creatures cards with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. But +1/+1 on each of them. What's +1/+1 count on each of them? So the idea here is, of course, you're searching. I don't know. I think it might just be laggy. Anyway, I'll try to get to the white cards because I don't have too many left, but we're just gonna have to start picking it up before some shit hits the fan. Like whatever. I think it's just my internet. Okay. Steam Rip. When this one white enchantment. When this enchantment enters, exile target non-land permanent and an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less. Until this enchantment enters until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. Drix hunt down Eldrazi potentiate without hesitation or explanation. So we have really like there's a lot of questions I still have about the Eldrazi on Edge of Eternities, because in one of the sets where they mentioned like Eldrazi cultists, which we haven't really seen. But we see the Monomus using Eldrazi, but I don't think the Monomus are the Eldrazi cultists they were referring to. But it's very interesting how like this person seems like the main character, but the more you look at it, you realize that it's like the Drix who can wet walk are they're cutting the seam into reality, and then this person's being cast into the seam. As this feels like very like almost like more like medieval knight, like not the Palatine to have no knight thing, but it's like the pets of Palatine usually have like more sci-fi advisors. But it's very interesting how this person's literally being bent backwards, like they're about to attack, and then whatever this is, like reality is so powerful, it's like banging them into this whirl, and it's almost like they're about to get sucked into this thing or sucked away. And here we have like an example of like basically the Drix or what in this background using like creating a cutting like some like a hole into reality to cast this person into. Once again, we have kind of like the white and gold, and then like with the contrast of like the dark purples and the purples. Although in this case, the purple is not representative of the mono, it's just representative like this person kind of be like back, like almost like part of the background. Like there's like all this space, like outer space in the background, and there's like dark purple to represent, and this person's like almost like a part of the background, like a part of like the environment in a way that this person is not, and it was being cast into like this weird like vortex thing. I guess this implies this person might also have the potential to become an Eldrazi or like be corrupted or something. Still don't know if we have a ton of information about that. Also, sorry if I don't read your comments past this point, because my internet I think is shitting itself, and I think that's why OBS is acting funny, and it's not really displaying properly. So I will try to read them when I can, but I can't make any promises. And we're just gonna start. I usually open up my phone is what I'm doing, but I can't even see. I can't even see it, so I don't know what's happening. I can't see it on my phone either. Oh, I see it now. Whatever, we'll close this for now. If I miss your comments, that's why. The Sariema. I feel like I've already talked about this before. So the ship uses like a lot of white, and I think that's as like copper. A bit. It's kind of hard to tell. It's a bit in shadow, so it could be more yellow, but it's kind of like copper to me. And here we have like the background's obviously like a bit more like white and yellow. And Syria almost has like this glow. Like it is glowing itself, yes, but it looks like it's hitting it from somewhere. Like on this, they want to it's a white card. But what's interesting is there's like this like cloud of something around it. I don't know if it's cosmic dust or what, but it's clearly like it's kind of like almost radiating like so much power. It's almost causing like it's almost like blowing this away, like out of the way. Like to make this look more powerful, and this thing in this person's hand, and it even has like this like weird like golden rays around it. Artifact equipment flash. So the idea is that it can suddenly like maybe the idea is because like I don't know if the idea is because it's like hard light, so it can be kind of like summoned or something, or if the idea is that it's like, or this is just mechanics, like it's lighted up that you can just like suddenly bring it onto the battlefield. But flash. When this equipment enters, attach it to a target creature you control. That creature gains first strike until the end. I think it's just the ideas they're just like the same colors as like space and like all the different colors of space can be. And then the idea of like the full light spectrum. White creature human pilot. When this creature becomes tapped, surveil one. Oh my god. Please, just like hang in there for like 2 fucking seconds, man. If my stream didn't already crash like 15 minutes ago. If it did, hold on. See, now we gotta go back to YouTube. Okay, if this thing is working, it might not be, so this might be going to no one. Starfighter pilot, whenever it becomes tapped, surveil once. The idea is that basically when you crew something or you... It looks like it's working on my phone. So the idea is that when you crew something or you station something, you have to tap it to get it to do so. So basically the idea is that, hey, when you tap me to crew or surveil something, or tap me to crew or to station something, I surveil one because I'm a pilot and I want to fly shit. So it rewards you, and then like by helping you like look for stuff. And the idea is like the pilot is like has a keen like can better look for stuff when they're flying something. Bright Star 1 to flight comms. Scopes are clear. The stars are yours. So just to, like ship comms. Starport secure. So this is actually the pinnacle symbol on it. Once again, like if the robot's like white and lined or an artifact's white line, they use like a lot of white. Some of them are like colorless, but most of them like when they go like, it's hard in like the white color. It's because they're white aligned, and the blades are like kind of like those bright blue and yellow. And it's like this interesting like hazard stripes. It's like hazard stripes except it's kind of like sci-fi like hologram hazard stripes. And then artifact creature robot soldier. Three generic, 1 white. Tap another target creature. This ability costs 2 less to activate if you control a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. You are suspect in an ongoing investigation. Do not resist apprehension. So here we have a monoist. Probably doing weird shit. I mean, the Palisade monoist both seem like religious extremists, to be honest. So, and obviously Starport is like a sci-fi version of like an airport. Like instead of flying planes, instead of acting like a port for planes, though, it's a port for like spaceships. And I guess the strategic deals because they can like they allow the ships to web travel, but at the same time it's like they want to usually be neutral, so they just kind of help out everyone. But if someone messes with that neutrality, they will step in. So I guess that idea is that it can tap something, but when it taps something, it's apprehending it. So you can have this robot apprehend something, aka tap it. And I can't really tell you for sure why it would be cheaper if it has a +1/+1 counter on it, other than the fact that they want to reward you for playing +1/+1 counters in this set. It could also just be that like the idea is that if you have another creature with you that's strong enough, it makes apprehending someone easier. Sunstar Chaplain. So once again, we have a very really hard like religious like connotation here, like a chaplain. 1 generic, 1 white. So once again, these people have like their faces uncovered, but wins. And I guess since this person is a Sunstar expansionist, like they're trying to expand and reach a new world and stuff. So the idea is that this person's like going to new places for you to like draw power from. Like they're going to new lands and then coming across them. Landfall. Whenever land you control enters, this creature gets +1. She gets +1/+0 +1/+0 to the turn. So obviously it's reflected also in landfall where it's like +1/+0 to the turn. So obviously it's reflected also in landfall where it's like whenever this person new area or whenever you show this person more areas to expand to, +0 counter. +1/+1 counter on this creature and draw a card. So I don't really know flavor wise what it represents other than the fact that like once you play a second spell each turn, maybe when you cast a second spell, like you learn something from it and also get stronger. I don't know. She forges blades of incandescence and quenches them in pitches of darkness. So I don't know if the idea is like maybe this will be turned into like a solid thing at this, but it kind of seems like what the idea is like they basically give like light a certain shape and then the weapon can project those specific shapes. So like that might potentially explain why why not any bright sphere can just take on any shape. It might have like a set number of shapes it can take on. Bright sphere, what's it called? Bright blade? Blade Eater, oh my god, Blade Eater. So that might explain why Blade Eaters can't take on just any shape and other similar weapons. It's like the idea, like maybe they have to be programmed or given certain shapes they can take hold of. This looks like it could be a Blade Eater. Of course, this person's the main character because like they're literally the only person here, and you have like all these cool like machines and like stuff they're pulling on, and then the light shining on their face help further emphasize her. Oh my god, I'm gonna go insane. Further emphasize her. Wedgelight Rammer. Very interesting colorful art. So 3 generic, 1 white. Artifact spacecraft. When the spacecraft enters, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. So once again, just like I guess it represents like one of the robots like on crew or whatever. Maybe like the robot even piloting the ship. Station, flying first strike. So when it becomes a creature, it gets flying first strike. So flying because it's a spaceship, first strike. So white usually gets first strike because it represents discipline, but I guess it also represents maybe like a bit of like the idea that like discipline like training, but also like maybe like the idea of like it can be even used defensively. Like if someone swings into you, you can attack them before they hurt you. But it can also be used. But I think mostly with first strike represents like some sort of discipline and like training. And the idea that white leans hard into like discipline, order, and training and stuff. In the case of the red, though, it represents more just like impulsive, like action and swinging first, asking questions later. So obviously here we have like the ship ramming to the person. It's very interesting, very colorful. It's almost like a very interesting piece because it's definitely like less realistic, but like here with the fire, it's smashing into something, blah blah blah. A lot of the gold coloration we see. I can't really tell if this is a Degi or not. I don't really know 100% know this is in the background, but a lot of clouds, like smoke, clouds, etc. Left blade enhancer. Amazing fucking quality. Yeah. Left blade enhancer. Here we have the Drix. Very interesting. The shoulder pads make them look like way bigger, but also like a lot of that silver. Very interesting. They shows purple for this Drix, even though it's like a white lined one. Like I feel like usually the colors are like either bluish or they match whatever mana color they're going with, but they went with purple for this one. Looks like they're moving across some sort of battlefield at an amazing pace. When this creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So 5 generic, 1 white. So obviously, once again, we have like White's idea. Like this thing shows up to help you. Warp. It can West walk, so it gets warp. As people watch the Eldrazi rise and Fomori fall, never will they watch again. So the Drix are like a very old species. They're the first one to have Weft travel because they can Weft travel naturally, and they were able to make a deal with the Pinnacle basically to like, hey, we'll help the Pinnacle out, but as a trade off, the Pinnacle, and we'll teach the Pinnacle how to Weft travel and help them maintain web travel stuff. But but the Pinnacle have to help us out. And it seems like what the Pinnacle helps them out with is like restraining and like containing like Eldrazi stuff, and also giving them information to help fight Eldrazi, and also maybe other weird shit like old, like because like the Edge is really really old. There's like a bunch of shit that was like maybe too dangerous now for a lot of like normal people to have. Or at least the Drix, they're too dangerous for normal people to have. So so they basically show up if you have any like weird artifacts or maybe even like weird shit like Eldrazi shit. They show up and then try to take it. Apparently they also sometimes seem to kill people if they're like too much of a danger or too corrupted. Self display, very interesting card. 2 generic, 1 white. Instant creatures you control get +2/+0 until the end of the turn. If it's not your turn, untap those creatures. The Sunstar Free Company is not swayed by profit. Sunstar is their faith, the prism through which they cast the light across there. So, for context, the Sunstar Palatinate is, in fact, a mercenary company, but they don't just do any job. They only work for basically the Sumist, a specific branch like the Sumism, because it's they're religious fanatics. So, even though they are technically mercenaries, they don't just work for anyone. And this also just confirmed that the Sumists do have creatures that are not humans amongst their ranks. Here we have this. So once again, one of the ways that Magic tries to show you that you want more creatures is like they just put a bunch of creatures in the card art. They're like, hey, this card is at its most powerful the more creatures you have, so you want to have a bunch of creatures. So let's show that by displaying it in the art. Here we have this like very confident pose. It's like because it's Zealous display, so it's like not this person has one blade ready, but they're like pushing their cape back and like revealing like all these people. It's like you really want to fuck with us, bro? Like look how many of us there are. Look how many like there's probably like one of you guys. And we have a very interesting glow of like the cape. I think like a very bit of like interesting bit of like lighting and color. One thing that's very interesting, you can see all their faces. Obviously, you get less detail the farther away you are. But and again, and the weapons are also highlighted in the same way the capes are because the weapons are literally glow. And while yes, in universe it's because the Bleed Eaters literally glow, artistically the explanation is also because they want to draw attention to the weapons to an extent. So it's like because this gives you +2/+0. It doesn't give you +0/+2. It doesn't give you +2/+2. So it's meant to be. So it can be used defensively by suddenly like getting your creatures +2/+0. But ideally it's like you're using to attack because you swing all your creatures are tapped, and then if it's not your turn, you cast this to give them +2/+0, and then untap them. So it's clearly meant to be used more offensively. And this is kind of represented how many like weapons you can see poking out their glowing weapons, and then you have like the ships flying by, etc., etc. So very interesting piece of card art. I think I'm gonna have to stop here because my computer is fucking acting up, and I really don't want to push it. I really don't want to get 30 minutes in and realize that it ain't recording shit because that has happened before. So we will. So I've been trying to talk slowly, but if you notice near the end, I've been talking faster because the connection's poor. Everything's fucking dying. I'm gonna have to cut it here. Well, I'll try to come back tomorrow or some other time. Fuck. Okay, I'll see you guys later.